And we're recording. Cool. All right, awesome. So, it's official. Also, I think I'm obligated to say, let everyone know they're being recorded. Yada, yada, yada. Privacy and so forth. Cool. Awesome. So, I guess where to begin, right? First off, thanks for doing this. Thanks for popping in. Been looking forward to it for, I think, a couple years now.
Sorry about that.
Well, it takes a long time to get a book published, right? And
That's
I have to
right.
say, reading Avant to Live, and love the title, by the way. And I love that a Craig Baldwin book isn't so much a book written by Craig Baldwin, but an amass of scholarly essays and reviews from other people about Craig Baldwin, which is probably the most Baldwin thing you could do. I guess where to start is that, I've tried to kind of summarize the locus of your work in so many different ways in your style, and terms like mixed media, found footage, collage narrative, pseudo documentary, essay film. All these things pop up, and they're all relevant. Which one do you think is most relevant, or what's your preferred nomenclature in describing your work? I guess.
Well, collage, but if all of them are okay, it's fine. I don't want to be the one to say that's the only lens you use, or the only frame you use, the only way you want to approach it. I'm into polymorphism and plurality, of course, in terms of understanding and whatever, thinking and criticizing. So you can approach my work any way you want. But however, I'm saying that's kind of what I have in the back of my mind when I'm in putting it together. You know what I mean? But it's actually fails as an essay because, as you notice, I don't really use first person. I think that's what I'll do later in my so-called career, is get more into, well, I think this and I think that. But it's pretty clear that I think those things, but I just don't use the first person pronoun.
Yeah. Oh, that would be that would be too easy, right? You gotta make your people work for it, right?
It would it would be simpler. It would be simpler. It's true. Yes, my thing is a hall of mirrors. Where the sort of you could say the address is bounced back and forth, and it's a little bit to confuse people. Just probably because of cruelty on my part, but cognitive dissonance. It's a way to complicate the situation, is to have a variety of voices in there, and some, of course, from the original footage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I put something in from some retro footage, then again, it's not necessarily that I agree with what's saying. So that's kind of a delicate issue. You understand? A lot of documentary people wouldn't do that. They would just leave that stuff out. So, my view is to kind of, like I say, sort of create a frisson, sort of a little bit of conflict and tension there.
Kind of stir the pot, create a little miasma. Kind of mix things up a little bit, which is what I love.
Yeah, a little of that.
Totally. So I think one of the things that in kind of tracking the narrative of your work and the works that I think have come before and around and are adjacent to, I feel like a lot of it kind of begins with early, verite, mixed media documentary and filmmakers, whether, it's experimental filmmakers like, Bruce Conner or, Mike Bouchard or Kenneth Anger, or, the early documentary, documentary filmmakers like the Maysles brothers and D.A. Pennebaker and Fred Wiseman and those guys. And then I think after the Baldwin spectrum, you've got people like, Bill Morrison and Rodney Asher, who I think are kind of taking, culling from what you've done and are doing, and culling from, what these other guys are doing. Where do you feel like your influence is there, and kind of shaping the work of these other documentarians, if you want to call them that?
you couldn't really place me in the thread of the verite people because I work with found footage. It could be that someone shoots verite and I include it into my assemblage, you understand? But I'm really more of a collage guy. So my thing is the idea of working with the archive and working with found footage is central to what I do. And so, though I was tremendously inspired by the Maisels and Pennebaker and Wiseman and so on and so forth, myself is on the other side of the spectrum from those guys. I'm interested in critique, and that what those guys do is by hanging with their camera long enough, they'll get the right shot. And what I do is I go into the archive, you know what I mean, and I find that shot. You know what I mean? So
Right.
rather than myself, so I don't really sit there in location. Though I do that occasionally when I want to create narrative sections, but that's not my strength. My strength is the collage. So I'm a good pal with both Rodney and Bill. So I agree with you as far as those guys sort of spinning off. But what I was doing is really more coming from Zia Vertov. It's coming from the Soviets. It's coming from this guy named Vorkapich, if you know him, who was a Hungarian Eastern guy who took, my argument is that the idea of Vertovian montage came to Hollywood. It did. It succeeded. It was a good idea, but you couldn't make money off it. So what happened is they just sort of trivialized it as a way of a Vorkapichian sequence is what it's called. Look it up. And it means calendar pages turn and, shadows and leaves blow. And then you get scenes of marriage and scenes of babies and then scenes of the guy goes to war and then he comes back and then there's a third person intervening. There's a divorce, there's a murder, and so on. So in other words, it's became a way of condensing time in Hollywood movies. But it did come, and you see it in Frank Capra with his Why We Fight, which I was probably influenced by, and Bruce Conner was influenced by than the Verite. That was even before Verite, by the way, because cameras were too heavy then. So the point is, with things, I do see myself as a nonfiction filmmaker, though documentary, I mean, is stretching the term. It's fine. It's fine. You would call it an archival documentary.
Right.
But, D'Antonio, if you are familiar with D'Antonio.
No, I don't think so.
Emil D'Antonio? Okay, well, you write that one down. That's required, I must say. And he's a guy who was sort of. Did you ever see Atomic Cafe? Again, by Prelinger.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, that Prelinger did the sourcing the films for that. So that was coming up. You understand? So that was Conner was my teacher, in fact. But Conner uses the same footage as Capra in a lot of cases, but he flips the meaning of it. You understand? So I call Conner the bad conscience of Capra. But so anyway, what is Frank Capra making? Is that documentary? Well, maybe. I call it agitprop. So that's why I'm tremendously inspired by the Soviet tradition because of their cinema vera. They had to work with such little resources, and the whole thing that was found footage. They had to put films together when they don't even have the footage. They're just cobbling it together. You understand? That's how I feel because I don't get these big grants. So I just cobble together and I make it work by ingenuity. So it's a little different for documentary makers who wait for somebody to happen. Here, there's going to be a car crash. Just wait another day, and we'll get it. On surveillance video. But that's why that's liberated me because the surveillance video. You understand? That is, I don't have to do that kind of documentary. Just because there's cameras everywhere, don't you see that you could easily put together a version of reality just using the recordings like this, for example, that are being made all the time.
You don't need Fred Wiseman when there's a CCTV camera at every corner of every street and every alleyway.
Say that. I'm saying not to put Wiseman down, but you can almost say that.
No, of course.
So I'm saying is it's more, it's really the fires, flash, and cubism and that kind of stuff that made the big difference with me. Though, of course, I'm tremendously interested in filmmaking, but it's posters and stuff. It's graphics. I'm coming from collage. You know what I mean? Almost like uh, uh, I'm trying to think the Dada people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to do is create a simultaneity of different gestures and signs kinds of things. But I'm interested in looking at so-called history and the real world. And so you could say it's nonfiction, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But anyway,
There's
that was my inspiration. You could not really be found in the whole. I love the thing, especially his Boston, New England style of the Maisels, and taking cameras. Ricky Leacock, if you're familiar with him, yeah, you should know. And those are my heroes. But those guys are brave. But like I say, the technology is almost, don't just say, overtaken them with the surveillance camera being everywhere. So my thing is more constructivism. I guess that's the word for it. If you're familiar with, that was what Eisenstein was talking about. You know what I mean? And this kind of through montage, very proactive, very aggressive montage. Yeah. So see how that breaks the idea of the verite, the cutting. It's constantly rupturing into space time. Mm-hmm. And why? It's not a pleasant ride. You know what I mean? It's just more like this. It's more like this. It's more like
whack. Wake up. And I love Wiseman too. I'm a huge fan. Growing up in Massachusetts and studying film all over the place. I love his cinema. I can't help but bring him up whenever the subject of documentary or recording reality comes into the conversation. But the thing is, what I love too is that you've got the Soviet mentality where editing is the story. What you're seeing in front of you is not the moral certainty of the truth, but this representation of it as you see it, and whether or not it's real, it's more interesting than whatever the real thing could be. Is that did the baby carriage roll down the Odessa steps? I don't know, but in Potemkin, it's fucking awesome that it does, right?
Yeah, I allow for that. Yeah, I guess you could say doubt or speculation or ambiguity. That's all either. It's like I say, my idea is not to necessarily take people to a certain destination. Like JFK was killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. No, it's like, well, what about those bombs on the hill there? The tramps, and then that's an interesting idea. It might be wrong. It's probably wrong.
Right.
Well, maybe it was another killer, but. Who knows? But there's larger issues. There's not just this fetishization of facts. Yeah, like I say, that's what the surveillance camera's already doing. Everybody's already recording every single thing. Yeah. And it's more about this idea of using, I guess, a little bit of the imagination. You know what I mean? I guess you could say, and this little. And speculation and a hypothetical thing. Hypothetical thinking. That's it. It's speculative. It's speculative history is what it is.
And one thing you said that I really latched onto was the fetishization of facts. Is that there's such an emphasis on movies being realistic and realism and people discarding something because they don't believe that it's realistic. Like, oh, that would never happen. This would never happen. Of course, it would never happen. It's a movie. It's not supposed to be the realest thing in the world. And what's fascinating too is that with something like the Kennedy assassination, which I could go on about at great length and at great detail, so I won't even go there. But whether or not you believe in the lone gunman theory, the CIA, Cuba. The organized crime is another thing, but it's infinitely more fucking interesting if we talk about all that instead of just saying, one guy did it and he's a really good shot, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, sure. Okay, I'll agree with you. Yes, it's fine. But I mean, I'm not into pseudoscience. In other words, I'm into including and considering options, but I'm not into allowing religious people into our schools. Let's put it that way. If you see what
Yeah,
I mean.
exactly. It's a fine line because I remember when I discovered your work, I was like, I love this I love this mind, I love this energy, and I love this kinetic, style of putting different footage, of integrating footage of science fiction films and newsreel and archive and documentary, and spinning this kind of alternate, narrative of American imperialism and colonization and all this other stuff. But it also, there's this presence in your delivery of things that, you're not trying to indoctrinate or convert anyone to any certain, line of thinking.
Well, that's the least you can say. It's more about me debunking. It's not. I'm not allergic to bad ideas. I entertain them in order to debunk them. That's what it is. And so it's not so much saying yes to this. It's more like saying no, 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 no to all those, pseudoscientific truths, so-called truth.
Exactly. Oh, and that's the other thing too, is that again, it's an interesting area to explore, and it's a fascinating thing to kind of pull the curtain back and see what's going on. And it's always good to encourage people to undermine authority, ask questions, see if there's an alternate history, because it wasn't too long ago where schools told people that Columbus discovered America, and guess what, he didn't. So, it's important to ask these questions, but it's also important to, listen to doctors and the CDC and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. See, I don't try to do the same thing as doctors. That's what I'm saying. I don't try to do the same thing as the CDC. I don't try to do the same thing as surveillance cameras. That's already taken care of by people who know better. What I'm good at is putting ideas together and starting a fire. It's more like that. There's something destructive about it. It's not like saying this is the ideal way to live. It's just more like we'll at least have the warmth of burning those lies, kind of thing.
The warmth of burning those lies. I love that. I guess I'm gonna be a little ironic and go back to having some form. I'm gonna go back to Stolen Movie, which thank you for sending me, by the way. I love wonderful little sliver of early Baldwin stuff. And what I found most fascinating was that you deliver on the premise. You do indeed. It is indeed Stolen Movie. And what I thought was most fascinating, though, was that you go into the business of filmmaking. And this is a time when, Transamerica, and conglomerates were buying up the studios. And this is a time when, at the end of the 70s, when all these corporations were kind of trying to reclaim the glory days of the early studio era, the 1920s and 30s, and stuff like that, where you're publishing box office returns on these major motion pictures.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a fascinating way to go about this kind of, proto-media piracy, if you will. And I think the other thing, too, though, is that how would you feel if somebody were to make a sequel to Stolen Movie with what's going on today with extended universes and, streaming interests and data mining and all that other stuff?
More power to them. I think it's great. Of course it's happening. Whether or not they sell my Stolen Movie or not, it's just an idea is bound to happen. It's just a good idea. Let's face it. I get it. Here's the thing. I don't know what you mean by if you're talking about going into actual movie theaters right now. But the thing is, I don't think it would work with video. The real key to that movie was made with Super 8. That's the key, because anyone could do it with video. You see what I mean? And it would just it wouldn't have the same risk. See, it wouldn't be film on film. Well, you saw it by way of digital video. That's true.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But go there and you see the flicker and the cameras just getting every of exposure possibly can, you know what I mean? And the risk, and you know that you only have 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and so on and so forth. So I'm encouraging people to do that, and of course they are. But I'm saying it wouldn't work with video. But if you're talking about going into the web or something like that, a larger idea of cinema, then more power to them. You know, again, this is happening all the time. Some examples, but people who are hacking. It's hacking is what it is. You know what I mean? It's another extension of culture jamming.
Oh, big time, totally. And that's the other thing too, is that it's anyone can walk into a movie theater with a smartphone in their pocket. We have the best cameras in the world in our pockets right now, right? So doing
it right now. 1 trillion people doing it right now. So is that a solo movie? Well, yeah, it is. Fine, but more power to them. I don't have a problem with it at all. I'm just saying it's not exactly that wasn't exactly my project, at the time. My project was actually going to a lot of theaters, and I did 12 way, and I only end up showing 5. But in that one case, I go to the mall and I get into 3 before they kick me out. You know what I mean? So I like that idea of creating your own montage. You understand? I used to go to a drive-in where there was 3 screens, and at that point, the soundtracks were already not even coming from the boxes. They were still coming from the boxes, but you also could get it in your car radio. You understand?
Radio,
so so I would be walking back and forth in front. This is a beautiful summer night in San Francisco. In front of screen 1, screen 2, and screen 3, and I'd be tuning my radio, transistor radio, to the audio from 3 to 2 to 1. You understand? So then I felt like I was doing the right thing by going to the drive-in, which I love, which is taking advantage of it and physically seizing it. So that was the idea of Stolen Movie. It was really this idea of the street and the place and the body and this movement through space, you understand, and not just sitting and recording something, which is, like I say, okay. But my thing was more of break and enter, and then once you're in there, you choose, you select, and then you create your own montage. You understand? So I think that's a little bit surrealist. You understand? A little Dada that I was talking about before, but this idea is absolute. There's a lot of chance involved. A lot of chance. You know what I mean?
You were channel surfing at a drive-in.
What?
You were channel surfing at a drive-in before channel surfing was a thing.
You could say that. It's before channel surfing, before the idea of it. Yes, I was doing that. Yes, that's right. So it's a natural impulse, and it's a healthy impulse, by the way, I must say. But be outside is a wonderful, and it's again such a physical thrill. It's ecstatic to do that. You can't do it anymore because the drive-ins are dead. In case you didn't notice. So
there's one holdout in Massachusetts actually, and they're still going strong. Thank goodness for that. But it's a very unique experience.
There'll be a few, one in every town. That's all I ask for. So everybody has an experience of going to a drive. It's something you got to do, just like you got to go swimming or something like that. You just got to go to a drive-in
Yeah, so I guess we'll go to Wild Gunman, which is such a remarkable piece of filmmaking because not only is there a commentary, about American history and the Western as it relates to American history and the history of film as well, but it also kind of prefigures gamer culture and the gamer craze and just the kind of addictive repetition that comes with that. How much of that do you think were you aware of that as you saw it coming, or was it just part of kind of alchemy, luck, and all the above?
Okay, that's a good question. If the title Wild Gunman actually is probably the first person shooter game, and it happens to be a Japanese game that succeeded wildly. in the U.S., and it ran with 2 projectors. You should know that, 2 16mm projectors. If you go to Wikipedia and you look up Wild Gunman, you will see there in the history that there's a mention of my film being the first. I should send you that link, but anyway, I'm sort of bragging, but it's true that I absolutely nailed it. I absolutely nailed it, but the thing is, I cannot claim it had. It was way before gamer culture, way before gamer.
Yeah.
For me. It was the same impulse as Stolen Movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was deeply impressed. In the case of Stolen Movie, with the culture of the grindhouse, the culture of exploitation films. Those grindhouses don't exist anymore in San Francisco, and probably not in most cities. And there was always a place in every city where you can go for, well, it's called a tenderloin here. You know what I mean? If you know the idea of a tenderloin. That's where drugs and prostitution and the senior citizens, for example, live in SROs and they don't have anything to do to the day. And so these triple features of these third run movies play, starting at 2, they play 3 or 4 times over the course of the day. I used to work at those theaters, you understand?
Yeah.
I worked at a porn theater in the middle of all those other theaters. I was working at 4 theaters when I was an undergraduate. That's how I worked my way through school. And I became personally committed, not through gamer culture, which is just the opposite, a cocooning, privatized, spoiled, entitled rich kid thing. That's what I would call it. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
I
was
agree.
more involved in arcade. I was more involved in the arcade, you understand? So there was an arcade. Right below where I was sleeping, there was a fascination parlor, if you know what fascination is, where you roll a ball up this ramp and it goes into these 3 circles.
Yeah.
Like a target. But it could be any good, just the idea of a pinball market. So that's what I was exploring in Stolen Movie, was the relationship, again, physical, between the street, the images on the screen. That's why I wanted to always go through the rear exit. I didn't always succeed in doing that because so to go through the front exit and en route, capture, en passant, so to speak, capture with the images and then go back to the street. It was, of course, way more exciting than movies. That's the way I felt about it. You understand? So in the case of Stolen Movie, it was just it's totally a step up from to Wild Gunman. You understand? Because I went to a arcade that happened to be the Santa Cruz Boardwalk. So I'm living in San Francisco. But I used to go to Santa Cruz all the time. This is something you wouldn't necessarily know, but it's sort of a resort town, a beach town. You understand? There's a fantastic boardwalk. It's just unbelievable cool with the rides and, scary spooks rides. Yeah. And then there was an arcade in there, and then they had this game, and I said, well, that's all about film. They're showing film. It's interactive film. You understand? So the idea did not even exist. Don't you see? Especially with video. And that was pretty. So the video games were coming on there. There was, and there is in Wild Gunman. But the point is, what blew my mind was here is actually a film that I can interact with, and I brought my tripod. You understand? I was a student at the time. From the apartment, wooden. They call them sticks. You know that, and I put them right in front of the game, and I just pumped quarters in it. And until they kicked me out, and they did, by the way. So the point is that it was. Don't you see how it was like Stolen Movie? It was the same thing as Stolen Movie. It was, but instead of going into exploitation houses and grindhouses, I went to an arcade, which is supposedly just as tawdry and sleazy, and just as funky, and it's just so cool. And I got, you know what I mean? That was my entree, was the culture. It wasn't so much pinball machines, but the culture of the where images were kind of in play. You know what I mean? They were kind of almost like what do you call it? Like popcorn or candy corn. It was just treats. You understand? just bad for you. You know, it's too much sugar. It was just
Yeah.
you do this, and I said this is just. This just breaks the paradigm for me. I said I'm going to make a copy of this. You know what I mean? And I did. So that's why the two are always related in my mind. One was 16 and one was Super.
That's another. You answered another question because I wondered. I remember reading that you had found Wild Gunman on the boardwalk, and I was like, I wondered if you just actually candidly got the footage, on the street as you were saying, and yes, it turns out you did. You did just candidly just grab it guerrilla style, or if you had somehow gotten it.
I successfully stole it, but you could actually say that I paid for it. With the quarters.
Oh yeah, because you're pumping quarters.
Just like anyone who puts an iPhone, in the movie theater could say, I paid way in. Yeah. But I was there for a while, and I also got other shots while I was at the boardwalk, like of the video games at that time. You understand, which was also kind of a new idea. The theme, it was funny because here was the 3D live action, and then against these very schematic ideas, same thing, cowboy fights, so as a kind of a genre, I guess you could say.
It's funny too because there's this weird kind of thing with video games and the shooter games that you see in arcades, because from something like Wild Gunman, which is in the late 70s, going into in the 80s and 90s, you had these shooter games where you'd pick up the plastic gun and you point it at the screen, and you had VHS quality actors pretending to be bank robbers, and you shoot them and you get points and everything like that. And it's funny because we're working our way back to realism, is that we started with actual projected 16 millimeter images of cowboys getting shot and falling out of windows. And now we have, these 3D, rendered computer images, and it's almost like we're trying to work our way back to the real image when we actually had it back in the 70s.
It's going to happen. There ain't no doubt about it. It's going to happen. Yeah, but much higher quality. There'll be holograms. See, it'll be holograms. You don't have to shoot them. You'll be able to make love to them. Don't you know that?
Right.
Not to fuck you, but what you say is so true. It's obviously true.
I know what you mean too.
So there you go.
It's funny because What's that?
Nothing.
Oh, it's just funny though, because whenever there's a new format of something, whether it's 8 millimeter, 16 or whatever, some of the first things that get produced are usually westerns and pornography. Like you said, arcades and grindhouses and porno theaters and stuff like that are the bread and butter of vagrancy and just idle whatever it's.
Well, I agree with you. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not my whole trajectory. Going back to your earlier questions, is really not top down. It's really bottom ground up from the ground up. So I always look towards the what do you call it? The low culture, sleaze, low culture, subculture is always been my inspiration. And that's where the ideas really come. And then someone gets lucky and puts it, especially on, the internet, where it's massively viral, and it succeeds. But I always go, well, we already knew about that. Artists, punk rock, already knew that. You know what I mean? Duh. Where'd you get that idea, buddy? I wish I had come up with some examples, but there's plenty. There's plenty, but it's true. Yeah. So I see that as I see, it's not so much popular culture. It's like subculture that I think break through. Some of those people call themselves fine artists, and that's fine. And our friends and so on. I teach in art schools and so on and so forth. But I don't. I always try to keep my nose to the ground. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too because nowadays if you look through, I was looking through the bargain bin of DVDs at Walmart and Kmart and stuff like that. And what you find is that you find these $2, $3 DVDs of movies, and they're westerns. They're these westerns, and they'll get like Robert Duvall or some other older actor who's, familiar with the genre and repurpose it for, again, they say the Western's dead and stuff like that, but it's really not, because it's gone back to its roots of being this kind of, regurgitated, genre fare for a certain market. It's a fascinating thing how these genres are very cyclical. But I guess the next thing I wanted to ask you was that after Wild Gunman and Stolen Movie, there's Rocket Kit Congo Kit, and this is definitely a creative evolution in that you have a political statement, an artistic statement, and then speculative statement. And I guess, what was one of your sources of inspiration aside from the actual, situation in Belgian Congo, or the former Belgian Congo, as it were?
Okay. Again, it wasn't. It didn't come from the art world. I mean, it could. I'm sure there were influences, but the thing is, it came from the front page of the newspaper. It wasn't the front page of an American newspaper. It was a German newspaper. So at that point, I had a lot of pals and friends, comrades in Berlin. I've been to Berlin many times, and someone sent me this article, and it was about this German rocket firm had leased out 1/10 of the area of Zaire. The Congo's now was then called Zaire, just so you know. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, overtook and superseded any possible science fiction. You understand? So that's what I'm saying by the ideas really come from this journalistic piece that you couldn't write a more bizarre science fiction story. You know what I mean? So in that imperialism, what is there, new imperialism, whatever you want to call it, I saw a science fiction movie, and I was inspired by that. So that was, you could say, a clipping or an article. Really inspired most of my movies, to be honest with you. But this was the most blatant example where I said, "This is you. I cannot believe this, and I have to absolutely make a movie about this." And I said the same thing, by the way, not to jump ahead, but in mock-up of a movie. The whole thing was based when I saw this book in this bookstore, and it was just insane flash that just, like a bolt of lightning struck me. But we'll save move for later. But this is what happened then. I just said, this cannot be in my, just like a little bit like Walden. I said, I cannot believe I have a pistol and that I emits light and it changes the course of this movie. And It was, so it's almost like technology had, again, overtaken me, and I just was trying to respond to it. So in the case of the German thing, not to get into the details, but it was just that you could actually, the relations between the North and the South could happen so that this guy Mobutu could lease out 1/10 of his for some rocket firm to test their rockets. So I said, this is, I'll make a science fiction film about African politics. And so that's really, to be honest with you, what catalyzed me.
Yeah. Oh, it really knocked me out because I entered your work with Tribulation 99 first, as I'm sure a lot of people do, as it's, one of your most visible movies. And the bonus feature on the DVD has, Rocket Kit Congo Kit. And then, I'm hit with this information. I'm like, I'm enamored with it because, I know that this is the actual, story of the country, of nationalism, of colonialism and everything like that. And again, it's one of those things where, the quote is, the cliches, you can't make this shit up. And it's true because the fact is sometimes so much more baffling than fiction. And then, the point where it converges is that they kind of both hit each other and explode a little bit. I think that's what I see in your film, which makes it so fascinating, is that you can put footage from, James Bond or, Quatermass 2, and it just clicks so wonderfully.
Well, thank you. Well, that's kind of what I was talking about a little earlier when I said this issue with documentary. In the case, I'm in the documentary world, and I respect it tremendously, by the way. And in festivals, for example, there was a point where you couldn't have reenactments. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
That was considered to be not appropriate or not
The
best
Thin Blue
practice.
Line wasn't considered a documentary for years because Errol Morris reenacted X amount of the footage. And
what
now
was that question? I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean, for years, for a long time, the Thin Blue Line was the hot take because you didn't consider, a lot of people didn't consider it a documentary because he had reenacted so much of the footage. Now that's just normal.
Yes, yeah. What I'm saying is, you could say we won that, so to speak. You understand?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah,
but and same thing with putting archival footage in. You know what I mean? That's also is sometimes problematic. But the thing is, to put archival fiction in there, don't you see? That's the next. What would you call it? Next cross. That's the next barrier to cross.
Mm-hmm.
So again, does it make it? It certainly. It loses its its recognition, acknowledgement of a documentary. It's something other than a documentary. You know what I mean? And festivals might not take it. You understand? If it's got footage from fiction films, like I say, Quartermass 2. So what I'm saying is that's the front that you could say I'm fighting. You understand? In other words, I'm trying to argue for a documentary in which we can consider these other ways in which truth can be staged, shall we say. You know what I mean? It's again, not so much about the actual facts of it. Other people can take care of that. The coroner can say where the bullet actually ended up. But what I'm saying is I'm trying to open up a world of thought and of critique, and you know what I mean, and of dialogue around the issue. So that's why I will allow these other kinds of things in there, not just reenactments, but made by me, which I do, by the way, but also reenactments made by other people, like before I was born. You know what I mean? And that works for me too. You know what I mean? But again, it violates the conservative definitions of documentary.
Right.
You know, not that, again, I'm not crushed by that. No.
Right. Exactly. Well, I think it also kind of goes back, maybe answers the question that I posed earlier, is that, what's the defining definition? There is no defining definition, whether you want to call it collage narrative or found footage, boop, is that we're still figuring it out, we're still honing it, we're still making it. And I say we loosely because I do some of the same shit. But it's I guess one of the self-sustained but undefinable frontiers of filmmaking is this kind of this idea of collective collage footage as a way to express the vexing nature of modern politics, of modern warfare, or whatever it is that you want to explore.
Not only, this comes to the essay part, it's not only the contemporary complexity of so-called reality or history, but it's also the complexity of consciousness. You understand? So, like I say, there's doubt in one's own mind. Minds make mistakes, and so on and so forth. And I have my own bias and my own perspective, which I get. You understand? So I'm not trying to be objective. Again, I surrender. Right. I yield. I don't need that. So I'm saying that the complexity of the exterior is generated through the complexity of the artist's sensibility and consciousness. So it actually says something about the maker as well. You understand? So that's why I'm saying you can come up with these labels. That's fine. Collage narrative. I got a million of them. But But don't you see, the audiences can also come to a gallery to see paintings by someone who imagines a landscape this way. You understand? So, so that's another reason for cinema, is to understand how someone can imagine a landscape. Let's say the history of the Congo. You understand? So people should recognize that I'm not trying to tell them how they should think about the Congo. I'm just I'm kind of painting a picture, if you see what I mean. So I claimed that right. Right. So it's not like I claim the right to be objective. I claim the right to have a perspective. And my perspective is very complicated. It's not simple, to be honest with you. But I'm being honest to myself and I'm being honest to the viewer, just like a painter's supposed to be. And so I'm supposed to be respected because I am forthcoming and generous, you understand, in revealing and sharing my point of view. And then you can go to another gallery and see another artist, by the way.
Right.
Understand? And that's groovy. And that's what I believe in, just so you know. Which, again, I said it earlier, multiplicity and polymorphous, perversity. More. And that's healthy, by the way, in case you know.
Well, it's also, you could see something in the news, maybe, the Ukraine war, and say, like, oh, this is part John le Carré, part, Tom Clancy or something like that. In a way, you just kind of made a collage narrative by describing it through this pop culture cipher, right? I remember this interview with Jerry Harvey, who was the programmer of the Z Channel, and in a radio interview, somebody asked him, how would you describe your childhood? And he says, I would say it's, parts American Graffiti, part Two-Lane Blacktop. And for someone else, it might be like, what the fuck is this guy saying? I'm like, that makes perfect sense. So he probably went to the drive-in and hung out with his friends and raced cars, but also was probably this, like, angsty, nihilistic, existential dude. And that sounds like Jerry Harvey to me. It's all about how it gets interpreted.
I'll go with that.
But yeah, there's all these different ways to interpret, film, media, culture, politics. It's all so deep and varied. Recently there's this fascinating thing at Mass Mocha, which I know you've had an affiliation with in the past. There was a artist, Carrie Schneider, who took footage of Romy Schneider from Andrei Zulawski's The Main Thing Is to Love, and put it on a loop on 16 millimeter. And what she did was that she did printings of it in this camera, she called her camera obscura, and then reprinted it, each step frame from the film. And I think in researching, I don't even know if she had even watched Zulawski's movie, but she was so enamored with the YouTube clip that she had found. And I think, again, this is another, like, extension of how we interpret media and how we interpret film, is that, you can get a 5-minute snippet from a movie and then it can just kind of, like, blow your whole fucking mind up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. By the way, not to interrupt the interview, but you actually crossed the border to go to school is in Massachusetts. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so we were in Massachusetts for a while. I mean, I grew up in Massachusetts, and then we found a place in upstate New York, and now I commute from here to North Adams to go to school up at MCLA in North Adams.
Where? What school?
Oh, Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts.
Is that in that same valley there with Mass Mocha?
Yeah, it's like literally in the same neighborhood. Like,
I understand. Yeah, that there's a cluster of schools in there.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
A good community, I think. Yeah,
healthy. Definitely. Very cool. But yeah, so I guess after with the Rocket Kit Congo Kit, and then going into Tribulation 99, which, as I mentioned earlier, is probably your most well-known work, is that Rocket Kit Congo Kit. It definitely feels like a primer for what you would do in Tribulation 99. Is that, you're calling all these different filmic sources and newsreel sources to kind of illustrate this alternate history of the United States, of U.S. imperialism, and the various military interventions around the world at the time. And I think one of the things that really stuck out to me was, you can see by reconstructing the narrative, you can better understand the events that you're reconstructing through the stuff that you're using. Does that make any sense?
Are you saying that through a proactive collage reconstruction of the history, one can better understand what happened? Is that what you said?
I think so, yeah.
Well, we discussed this earlier. I said, yes, I create a platform, you could say, with planks that are made that I found at the beach. Let's say I was beach combing, you know what I mean? And I found all this wood that floated in, and then I was able to make a stage, you know what I mean? But it's funky. You know what I mean? But it can hold, you know, the water goes under it. You know, it's built off the water, so it is a place where you can stand and you can sing, so to speak, metaphorically. So it's one platform, yes, by which one can understand. Again, it's not necessarily correct, but
Right.
but you look down and you can see there's holes in it. You understand? You can see there's holes in it. You can see that it's a part of history. You could see that it has the experience of history. Like rust. That's another example. You could say pieces of metal that are rusty, but they've lived through history. So there is an authenticity to it. But it's one way of looking at it. I'm not claiming that's the best way to understand it. You know what I mean? Again, that's all I'm doing is trying to not to I'm disclaiming. I guess the word would be, yeah. I can't claim that I have. I'm just saying I managed to build a little platform above the water where you can stay dry and sing, and so that's my answer to your question. It's one way. Like I say, it's more it acknowledges the complexity of the situation. That's what it does, rather than just say it was 100 degrees, you know, in at Mass Mocha today. Rather than say that, I would say, well, if you know, inside it was here, in the closet it was here, outside on the roof here, and through a lens it was here, you know, through a microscope it was here, with a negative it was here, with a parka on it was this, you know what I mean? So it's more of a, you know, it's a kind of busy. It's more like a lot of bees, you know, kind of thing. It's more like a buzzing cluster of bees that are talking back and forth to each other. Again, that's just reaching for a metaphor. So what I kind of disclaim what you're saying. It's not the best way, whatever you said, to understand. It is a way to understand it. A lot of people, again, would not even care, to be honest with you, about the history of the Congo or the history of Panama, you know, especially now. But the thing is, it does draw people in because of the narrative hooks. Sure, it's from a point of view of a filmmaker. It's one. I'm not the only one to figure that out. You know what I mean? What I'm trying to think of, JFK and that famous movie, which is filled with all these. It's a way. It's a way. You could say there's a little bit of a suspense, a little bit of drama in there, of course, but it's all self-conscious. You know, it's not. It's not manipulative. It's not cynical.
Right. Well, JFK is an interesting one because, again, you know, Oliver Stone is not unlike what you're doing with the editing and bringing in. Is that he's bringing in, he's bringing in, archival footage. You know, maybe it's just a Zapruder film and newsreel stuff, but he's also recreating and restaging stuff to look like, you know, the footage of, you know, Ruby shooting Oswald and stuff like that. And in some ways it's, you know, dramatic license and aesthetic expression. But on the other hand, it could be almost looked at as like historical cosplay. Is that like, oh, doesn't he look like Oswald? Oh, doesn't he look like Jack Ruby? But he's also employing these different, you know, film speeds, and some's in color, some it's in a different aspect ratio, some it's in black and white. And it's almost not unlike what you're doing by employing all these different, you know, sources to paint this story or to construct a narrative. And I think that has got something to do with the time in which it came out, is that this is the burgeoning era of the music video, of cable, of sourcing different, you know, aspects of entertainment all from your home, right?
Well, yes, I said because he saw Tribulation, to be honest with you, but yeah, I can't claim claim that's necessarily true. But don't worry about it. I'm not making that claim. But I agree with what you said, and kind of what I said about 5 minutes ago when I was talking about the complexity of my sensibility. It's all going to be, as a subject myself, I am created by the media around me. You understand? So I am I get the guy who, at the end of the day signs his name to the thing. But of course, those things have created Oliver Stone, and they've created Craig Baldwin, and they create you, by the way. Sure. And that's why it's good, and it's timely, and it's contemporary. You understand? It's a contemporary mirror. It's holding a contemporary mirror up to contemporary reality, which is cracked. Yeah. The mirror is cracked. Of course it is.
Very nice. So excellent.
Yeah, I don't know what year JFK came out.
What's that?
What year did JFK come out?
91. Let's find out.
Okay, well, that's okay. You don't have to do that. What I'm saying is
91.
That's the year that Tribulation came out. So there.
Coincidence? I think not.
If you want a coincidence.
I could make my own essay film about the the Baldwin Stone connection. Ooh.
There you go. Well, cool. Even a stronger one is with Moo, by the way. But we'll get to that. I see that down the line. Continue.
Indeed, definitely. There's this energy to Tribulation 99, which I almost feel like in so many ways, like nowadays you have, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, where, people can edit these miniature films in their pockets and put them out there with this, very ready accessibility. And yet, back at, 1990, 1991 with Tribulation, is that you are organizing this rapid visual and audio sensibility. And do you feel like there's, again, a way that this might have shaped or influenced the accessibility of mixed media and modern social media?
Yes, I would say it preceded what we now call social media, but it's again, it surely is about the acceleration of media in our lives and our generation. There's no doubt about it. That's what it's talking about. Of course, it talks about Latin America, like I say, but it's double-edged. It's a double-sided mirror. Also reflects back on ourselves and the fact that the nature of walking down the street is a collage. It's an insane, aggressive attack on our senses. In case you know, but I live in the city. It may be a little quieter where you are, but I have chosen that. You understand? And I'm aware of that. It's not like I was, placed here. No, I came and I remained here. Because there's an aesthetic thing, so that has to do with my nervous system. You understand?
Yeah.
But so yes, I can go to the country. My brothers live in the country. You know what I mean? That's all groovy. It's not. But so yes, I'm the so-called whatever you call it modem that is receiving all those impulses, and it was, by the way, in 1991. My thing was, again, not so much electronic. It was film, because as you see in Stolen Movie, I was just watching so many movies, you know what I mean? And just spending a lot of time and also watching movies partially, because being an usher, being the popcorn guy, means you're not sitting down. You're watching it from the side. When I was living in the porn theater, I wouldn't sit down, but I would always hear the theme to Deep Throat. Every time I walked out the rear exit door. You know what I mean? So it became like, again, part of the montage, of my so-called brain. You know what I mean? It's in there. So that's kind of the way. That's one way I think of myself. Now, it may be right and it may be wrong, but that's the way I that's the armature with which I approach a project.
It's part of your education, is that this is how you've interacted with a medium for so many years. Is that when you work at a theater, you're gonna know the opening credits of a movie like the back of your hand, but you're not gonna have any clue what the climactic speech is going to sound like because something else premieres at that other time.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I can almost predict how it's going to climb. You know what I mean? That's the thing about straight
Right.
movies, so to speak, Uh, that's fine. It's it's not like I need that. You know what I mean? I can come up with a better ending. But I do like the again. I do like the formal things, like I say, the fact that there would be a montage sequence, to be an opening sequence, a title sequence. So that's why it's like taking apart a motor or a car. You know what I mean? I was familiar with
Yeah.
what a door looked like, and so on. So I got handy with it. You understand? Plus, by the
Yeah.
way, I was also, and this is sorry it takes so long to mention this, but I was a light show guy. You understand? So that's really where
Yep.
I got my collage chops. Is cutting collage reels for clubs, and that was
Hmm.
happening at the same time. You could
Yeah.
easily say that Tribulation came out of what do you call it? Light shows, visuals, club visuals.
Yeah, I remember
And
reading that in the book, is that writing from different gig to different gig and everything like that. And I remember when when I was younger, I would follow bands around and stuff like that, and we refer to the light show guy as a projectionist as the fifth member of every band. Was that
there you
if
go.
they had a cool light guy or a cool projectionist, they're like that guy is just as important as a guitarist or the drummer or whatever. And it's true because that's part of the live performance. It's part of the experience.
Yeah, it's just that was rock and roll generation. It's just part of the a very important part of my whole sensibility is forged in the fire of rock and roll. In fact, my
Yeah.
shooter, Bill, who you might know, he was the projectionist for the Butthole Surfers, and that's the
Yes.
reason that I made those kinds of films, because he was touring with all those Texas punk bands, and he came to San Francisco and he saw one of my posters. In case you never heard this story, it might be in the book. But and then
Yeah.
he saw my poster on the street, and he came down and he knocked on my door because of punk rock.
Yeah. I remember there was the documentary. I'm not sure if it came full circle, but it was about the Buttholes live shows, and they were talking about they would show the epileptic comparison footage at their shows, and they were talking
So
about the penis reconstruction surgery, and then the one guy was saying like, oh, the projectionist would show it one night and then play it in reverse the next time. Like he didn't play it in reverse, he just didn't rewind it. So when he played it back, it just came in backwards. Because I've done the same thing. I'll watch something the next day. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta rewind it. Then I'll play it through backwards. But yeah, no, it's a great bit of footage. It's great though. I mean, the Butthole Surfers live shows are the stuff of legend now.
Mhm.
But yeah, next up, I guess there's Spectres of the Spectrum. Well, I guess in between Tribulation, there's O Coronado, which thank you for burning me a copy of that, by the way. Which I was overjoyed to watch. I had been wanting to see it for an incredibly long time, and out of all your films, I think that one's got it's got a lot of original footage shot for the movie. And what I noticed was that out of a lot of the footage that you integrated into it is that there was a lot of kind of like folk horror imagery of like Vincent Price from Witchfinder General and stuff like that. And it almost kind of seemed like that aspect of colonialism took on more, I think, more horrific implications by using footage from like Vincent Price films and more horror films, whereas Tribulation 99 Spectres of the Spectrum took more, science fiction cues in terms of exploring this kind of colonial history. Is there a connection there?
Okay, that's a good observation. I don't know if it was self-conscious. It might have turned out that way, but the the yeah, it was more of a kind of an Inquisition. What do you call it? A little bit more gothic, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
because of the period. You know what I mean? So it's tough to come up with science fiction from the 16th century, man. So
Right.
we use other sources. Sure.
Yeah. Oh, and that's another thing too, is that there's always this kind of I mean, granted it's not Don Quixote obviously, but the imagery there, the conquistadors and the horses and the armor and everything, you can't help but not think of Don Quixote. And Don Quixote is always one of those things. It's like kind of like Hearts of Darkness. A lot of people have tried it and they haven't really pulled it off, with the exception of Coppola, I guess. I think there's a kind of like this kind of like myth around the film of filming something like Don Quixote in general, and I think it's interesting that I think among the people that have attempted it, like Orson Welles and Terry Gilliam, you also have Craig Baldwin, who I think is at the forefront of some who pulled it off quite expertly. So I guess that's less a question, more of an accolade.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah. Quixote is what do you call it? Very, very deep model or analog or form, narrative form. And that again abides very deeply in our minds, and so it resonates. Sure. That's all I got to say. I'm glad you know more about film history than I do. That's for sure. I can tell that. Good for you.
I guess this question can be off the record if you don't mind. No Coronado, I haven't been able to. It's not accessible as much as your other works. Is there a reason for that it's not available on DVD or anything like that?
Okay, I'm willing to put this on record. I will tell you what happened. What the thing is, I made Tribulation, and that just blew up. You know what I mean? And I was on a bit of a roll. And I got a grant. You understand? Maybe it had to do with the success of Tribulation. You understand? And then, you could say I looked at the old calendar, and I saw it was going to be 1992. You see? And that's the quincentennial. And so I was, there you go. So I said, I see your counter quincentennial. So the thing is, I'm the big, anti-imperialist, right? I'm the big anti-colonial guy. So I said, well, man, I put your mind and your heart behind a project that resonates with the time. I said, make a critique. And then I looked, I said, well, all these guys over there in West Mocha and Austin, all in the East Coast, they're all gonna make a critique of Columbus, you know what I mean? And all those guys, you say, what do I have a claim to? I says, well, I live on the West Coast, and I'm going to tell a story that those guys won't touch of the so-called colonization of the so-called Southwest. You understand? So I found my corner. You know what I mean? And I'm working from my corner. And I'm saying, yes, I'm talking about the West because I climb it. I travel. I spent a lot of time in the desert and so on and so forth. And so I was just rushed to put that thing together, if you see what I mean. And the whole time, again, like a little bit more like agitprop. The whole idea was I'm going to get this out like a pamphlet. That's my thinking. Again, it's not so much fine art. It was always agitational, rabble-rousing, pamphlets, zines. I was like a zine. So the whole thing, we managed to put it together. It was hard. I slept under the flatbed, and so on and so forth. And and a lot of stories. And we got it out just in time, like November 1992. But the point is that I had, again, broken through and started to include both video sequences and narrative sequences in a found footage film that I hadn't done in Tribulation. And I hadn't done in Rocket Kid Tom Cruise. And I hadn't done in Wild Gun. So that was just, that was good intuition. That's what it comes down to. But I wasn't so sure it worked so well. And by the way, it doesn't in a lot of cases work so well, but that's okay because I made it, and I'll stand behind it. And so the thing is, most of my films take about 5 years to make. In that case, I made one within 11 months. So it was rushed. And so what I'm saying is, we never put it on a DVD. That's more or less my answer to your question. We never it was a soft, what do you call it? A soft opening, a soft release. Yeah, it was fine, and it works well, especially with Trib. Trib and Coronado together, 40 minutes and 48 minutes, and it's a double bill that I toured with. But it was Trib was the reason that people were coming. So I guess one answer is that Coronado is revolutionary in form, but it's not as successful as a sort of a motion picture in the theaters. You know what I mean? But after time, it has whatever. It's dated well. Like I got same thing with Wild Gunman. It dated well because I had good intuition about the video things and also the inclusion of these narrative things. You know what I mean? I mean, some of them look pretty, corny. We just rushed the whole thing. That's my answer to your question. It's fine, but it's like a newspaper had to be published. You understand? And so deadline, whatever, print that. It was like that.
I think it's this. I'm coming from a more fan perspective. I think it's something that might be due for reappraisal. I think there's an audience for something like that. I honestly, I think that there's a.
Oh, well, it is being reappraised right now, and I appreciate it. I do thank you, but it's fine. I mean, people did write about it. You in the book. You'll see there's articles. People got it. Jesse Lerner is a genius. You should know about him. He's again my mentor, and but he got it immediately. And it's not about so much the execution. My films are kind of they're filled with errors, flaws, and mistakes. It's more about the whole gestalt, say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Knowing the maker, knowing the kind of the story behind it, knowing how he pulled it off. We broke into a national park. I hope we could be right now. And you could say I was disrespecting native property. You could say that. You know what I mean? But I mean, we just did what we could, save the world. That's kind of our feeling. And we were down. I don't know if you I don't want to take up too much of your time with the story, but it may or may not be in the book. So while we were the reason we were able to make it to New Mexico from San Francisco was because it was the Thanksgiving weekend. You understand? Everybody had jobs. Everybody had to go to school. You understand? So we were literally shooting in this kiva that we broke into, let's say midnight, shooting by a pan of alcohol, like isopropyl alcohol. That was our lecture, and then there was all these alarms, like cops and cop cars everywhere, and then there was all this. We heard all these footsteps. We were below ground in this kiva, and there was people running all around. And I said, "We are busted." We are busted. There were like 5 people in that kiva, and I said, everybody lie down and just shut up for about 5 minutes. If you could imagine that experience, being there with all our camera equipment and just going, I'm scared to death. And then after about 10 minutes, everything went away, and then we got up. We were all in costume, by the way, and we walked out across the park to get out of the park to go to our car, and then these cop lights come on, like in this open field. And they started coming at us. And I said, "We are just a joke. We were dressed up like conquistadors and friars, and the cops from New Mexico are coming to bust us." And they came up to us and they said, "Has anybody seen a shooter around here?"
Oh shit!
Talk about Wild Gunman. And somebody obviously just got drunk and went outside and started shooting. It's happens. It's going to happen tomorrow, Labor Day. Of course it is. And that was why the whole alarm's gone. And it was a ridiculous, absurd joke on us, of course. But we would say, what had we just gone through? You know what I mean? But they let us pass because they were looking for some. Our government, believe it or not, it's a true story. So anyway, that's just one anecdote out of many. But it's more of the film, like I say, is rough-hewn, but it really has to do with this. It kind of, you could say, gutsy, effort, feisty effort to do the right thing, and break some laws on the way. That's what it comes down to. And
Well, if you don't break a couple laws, you're not doing it right. That's my
oh,
saying.
yeah.
But yeah, when I was watching it, I was thinking, I was like, I should show this to some of my relatives, to my mother. I think, the guys on the tribal council would get a kick out of it. They probably love it. And I will, if you don't mind.
Sure, you can. Of course, you can. I hope it doesn't. Yeah. Again, there's a certain sense of humor. It's got a little smart ass attitude. It's not like
Oh,
most.
of course, yeah. Well, it should.
Cinema. That we always show. By the way, if you look at our calendars, we always try to do something for No Thanksgiving. But
Right.
I'm quite familiar with. There's actually a Native American film festival in San Francisco as well, by the way. But anyway, so and by the way, so my interns are Native American, just so you know. So yeah, like I say, it's coming from my point of view. You understand? So I don't claim to be Native, but I'm more for Africa either. But I'm making a comment from where I'm standing, and I'm declaring where I'm standing, which is a head filled with wrong ideas that come from pop culture. So it's only by turning those things over, you understand, is to get to the real thing.
But it's good intentions that count.
Yeah,
definitely, big time. No, that's great. I was so excited to get a copy of Ono Coronado, and I was so excited to watch it, and I had a delightful time watching it, and I will definitely be watching it again sooner than later. But yeah, with Spectres of the Spectrum, this is another fascinating one. What's that?
If you're going in chronological order, Sonic is next.
You're right. You know what it was is that I got Tribulation 99 Spectres and mock-up in the DVD pack.
Well, okay. What?
So I always remember those in sequence. But no, Sonic Outlaws though, I would probably say is one of your most straightforward and immediate films, which I mean isn't saying a whole lot, but it is one of those movies that I think is very organized, has very organizing principle, but it covers so much ground, and it's also a response to the Negativland U2 lawsuit, which is something that is still part of the conversation now. You still have YouTube videos about this nowadays and stuff like that. It's a very David Goliath narrative, and it's quite a fascinating thing. I guess at the end of the day, what I think gets me the most is that U2 cracks me up because with their zoo tours that they hire the EBN to do a lot of the footage for that tour.
Again, reality superseded me. You understand? It was too good to be true. I didn't make that. I was just at the right place at the right time, and I was sensitive enough to be saying, "Well, this is going in the movie." Yeah, this is too good to be true. Yeah, it happens all the time. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Unbelievable. Well, it's funny because I've shown Sonic Outlaws to a few friends of mine, and the first time I did it, I said, "Oh, you gotta, understand this band Negativland, this lawsuit, and U2, and everything." And then, the reaction wasn't as positive. But then when I showed the film without my stupid preamble, people I think responded to it much better. And I think that's a testament to the cohesion of the movie itself. Is that, it doesn't need a warm up. It's actually quite, it doesn't need it.
Well, apropos of our earlier discussion about categories, it's certainly the one that most easily fits under the rubric of documentary. And so it got into most of those festivals, but it does, in fact, include a lot of fictional material. So I guess you could say was it a kind of an icebreaker and a groundbreaker, and not only on the argument itself, which has to do with fair use, I guess you could say in the long run, but also in terms of form. Yes, it was you could say an experimental documentary that did manage to infiltrate, whatever straight doc festivals, television, you know what I mean? So yeah, so it doesn't. It kind of speaks for itself, so you don't need a mirror to watch it, so to speak.
Yeah, I find that in the academic circles, because when I went to MCLA last semester is when Burnt by the Sun happened, and I would tell people, oh well, Craig Baldwin's showing it at the other cinema, and a lot of people would they'd hear the name and they knew Sonic Outlaws. That was a connecting point for a lot of academics, and I think for one, it's a great film. A lot of people know about it, but I also think there's so many different connecting points. And I guess what I wanted to ask with one of those connecting points was the Barbie Liberation Army. Um, was that footage? Were you the first one to get that footage? I guess outside of like news outlets and shit like that, but
Oh, okay. This is a little anecdotal, but I'll make it brief. What
yeah,
happened was I was in the middle of making Sonic Outlaws, and in fact, the whole thing that started was the Negative Land thing, and I never, in fact, to that point, had made a feature film. I didn't even know how long the film was going to be, and
right,
there was it certainly could have been that I was just going to make a 40-minute film about the Negative Land U2 thing, which would
right,
sell, by the way, which worked. It was good.
yeah,
But the thing
totally.
is, then I said, I'm not going to be a fanzine, a fan movie. You know what I mean? It's going to be about a series of ideas. And the ideas had to do again with intellectual property, fair use, and sharing of culture, and so on and so forth. So what about these guys? What about these guys? And what about these guys? And events that were happening to me, while I was making the movie, like a living subject. You understand? I was aware of all this discussion. I was really at the right place at the right time, and these
Hmm.
issues were breaking. I had a good friend who was a law student at that time. He appears in that movie, Alan Korn, and he
Hmm.
was doing research on this. So I roped him into the movie. You understand? So near the end, it took like 2 years to make the movie. Jesus. Uh, I was invited down to UC San Diego. Okay, again, this is kind of a personal trip here, but the thing is, I was already involved with the UC system. I had gone to school at UC San Diego. I had the good friends who were UC San Diego. You would know if you're in California, it's a very, very good. It's I don't even know what's called film. The film thing is in the art
Hmm.
department, so this is very competitive, and they got you could say that of any of the UC system, they were kind of the most enlightened and provocative, challenging film sectors, divisions, I guess the word would be. So the thing is, so when I went down there and I met these guys, I met the guy's name was Igor Vamos, and who was really the core of it, and that was like it was like probably his thesis. It was he might have made another one after. He might have been actually in his first year of graduate school, but he
Hmm.
had made it, and I met him, and don't you see? So I got it. You could say if you're saying am I the first one, that's not such a big issue with me, just so you know. But yeah, I
Yeah,
got it very early while he was still in
right.
school. Yeah, in the first year of graduate school, I was aware of what he was doing, and I was just again, I just blow your mind, man. This is
I'm
exactly like
mind
my kid.
blown. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I said, please let me fold this stuff in, and he's a lifelong friend. He was here a month ago, and guess what he's making? He's making the contemporary thing, like as you said, a reassessment. He's making an update of the Barbie Liberation. This would be like 30
No
years,
shit.
right? Almost 30 years.
Very
So the
cool.
thing, and the guy, his crew with him, by the way, was at that point when he made, it's going to blow your mind, when he made, he had a little crew just like I do,
Hmm.
were students also, graduate students. And his crew at that time happened to be a woman. And when a month ago, they came through, the guy had gotten a job, by the way, he was a professor, let me just say this, in
Hmm.
Sussex, a British guy. And he happened to be a man, shall we say? So I mean, talk about gender, and I mean this
Right.
is like an insane issue, especially in San Francisco right now.
Oh yeah.
So what I mean is I don't know what Igor's film is going to be, but I think it's going to have something to do with the fact that real people not dolls, are also challenging these ideas of gender. You know what I mean? So that again, that's my anecdote. Has to do with my relationship with Igor, who I just so adore. And by the way, he's in your part of the country. He teaches at RPI, if you know where that is.
Shit.
In Troy, yeah. Yes. So when I pass through New York, I always go to his class. Don't you know?
That's awesome.
He's a very good man. And after Barbie Liberation, you should know that he started a group called. I can't remember. He went through two. Now he's the Yes Men. You know what the Yes Men are? You know what the Yes Men are?
No.
Okay. Well, that's way bigger than the Barbie Liberation Organization.
Okay.
But it's Igor. Go ahead. Go on the Yes Men. Whatever. Yes Man. Blah, 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 blah. But you'll see. They just did a thing. Go and do this after the interview. Google the Yes Men and go, Daryl Hannah Barbie doll. So they did their own response to the big Barbie thing. And they made an agitational propaganda thing with Daryl, whatever her name is, Hannah, on the beach. They're just geniuses.
Yep.
And that's the Yes Men. And it's the same idea of just fucking shit up and jamming culture. So anyway, I'm so much into Igor's artistic practice. He's way ahead of me. He never really would call himself a filmmaker. But one thing he's cultural practice, social practice is what it is. You know what I mean? It's more about changing ideas rather than just showing a good time. So that's kind of what I've been talking about the whole time. So Igor's my hero. There's but you would know him by his name. No, he's one of the Yes Men. But at that point, that was just he did something when he went to school at Reed College, if you know what Reed College is, where he changed the signs Martin Luther King Boulevard to Malcolm X. He did that, to all the signs of this very long street. And he has ideas to break through the news. You see, that's really not exactly my thing. But that's cool if I something.
It's cool as hell.
His stuff is to infiltrate and jam up the news and spread a new idea and confuse people. Yes, I'm totally into that.
It's that moment of confusion that's so wonderful, right? And that's
then you have to figure it out. Then you say, "Well, I have to actually think about this,"
Yeah, that's one thing that I loved about the footage is that the greatest thing is that all the adults, all the parents are outraged. How dare you do this? This is a subversion of American, customs and ideals and everything. And all the kids are with it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, Barbie's just going undercover as a soldier, and or all the boys saying, oh, G.I. Joe just in.
Well, again, that's a mix. He's pranking. Also, it's all. Some people did say that, but also I think he got some actors to say those things. You understand? Like say either documentary propriety, ethics. No, it's just what will work. It's like the weapon needed to kill the enemy. So there's something kind of efficient about Igor's methods.
Right.
Yeah. So you would know if a fucking testimony was staged or not. I'm just warning you.
Right. Yeah. But for what it's worth, it makes an entertaining watch nonetheless. But yeah, no, Sonic Outlaws though is great, and my relationship with it was that I found a copy of it on VHS. Not my only VHS tape, but it's one of the first ones I bought in a long time, and that to me felt like the right way to watch it. I don't know why. I don't have a DVD of it, but I still have my awesome Sonic Outlaws VHS. And that's going to be my preferred way to view the film.
Well, good for you. Good for you. I love VHS. I adore VHS. And in any event, the DVD sold out. It was the most successful of our OCD releases. It sold out. Yeah. And it doesn't make any sense to reissue it now because no one buys DVDs. In the U.S. In Europe, yes. But so we couldn't possibly reprint.
Yeah, there's two DVDs that you guys ran out of, and one of them I wanted the most was The Net and Sonic Outlaws.
Oh, well, the net, yeah, that's also blown up, buddy. Yeah, yeah, that's also quite whatever you call it, being tossed around now on the internet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah, yes, and sure, that's also filled with dangerous ideas, by the way.
Yeah.
And
Right.
not everything I agree with, but like I say, it's like let a thousand ideas blossom. That's kind of the philosophy.
Yeah. Totally. But yeah, so Spectres of the Spectrum, I think, is probably another one. It's a very ambitious film with a lot of original footage, and I think, it's inspired me on certain levels to embark on my own project, namely Incubate. But that's not important right now. I also feel like I think it might be one of your more feminist outings in terms of your body of work. And also the use of science and action and stuff like that. So you've got the mixed media format, but you also have another kind of like a pseudo dystopic narrative sewn in there. What are some of your thoughts there?
What was the question?
Well, I guess between I think it's got one of the more I think feminist narratives, as well
Yeah,
as I
okay.
think one of the most ambitious narratives that they've put together. And also, I think there's an interesting launching off point with the dystopic thing as well, coming out at the eve of the millennium and all that. What are some of your thoughts on the film?
Well, they again, that's a film. I mean, all these ideas are in all our minds all the time. There's, in fact, more new ideas coming in. It's not a vacuum. You understand? So I'm always wanting to explore these kind of things. Now, in terms of the actual, as you could say, political argument, in Sonic, don't you see? It's a critique of of the of the rights of artists' work, of individual work, and this kind of battle between autonomy and the corporate control.
Mm-hmm.
But to expand that, you understand, to follow from that, I just stepped up at the argument and made it an argument about not just this piece, this record by Negativland, but in
Mm-hmm.
fact by who actually controls the recording industry in the first place, who actually records, who the broadcast industry, and now the internet with Bill Gates is in there, and who controls broadcast networks. And so it became it was connected with Sonic because it just became, instead of looking into an individual case, it was a critique of the corporate control of the larger network. So that's what got me close to the three interview subjects. Right? They're all talking about networks. They're all, one guy's a PhD at UC Davis. One guy's a sort of a fan of early TV. And the other guy's Eric Davis, who actually I think went to school in Massachusetts, maybe at Yale, who was expert on he wrote a book on technoculture or something,
Yeah.
something like that. So the point is that, don't you see, those guys are actually documentary interview subjects, interviewees. They're embedded in the narrative. So that was my political argument. But as far as the science in action, the actual body of the film, well, the thing is, there's a place here called the Exploratorium, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's like a science museum, you see, and started with the idea of getting children to understand science by perceiving it, not by reading, but by actually putting magnets together.
Yeah.
Or going into a room with different, you know what I mean? Having an experience that would get them loving science. So it was kind of a mixture, but not a little bit of a recreational destination, but also about science, like a science museum for children. You understand? But now it's really expanded, and now there's movie theaters in there and so on and so forth, and big art openings. So those people, sorry to take so long with that, have their own film archive. You understand? In fact, I know the person, and I went to school with the person who's the curator there. You know, it could be me. I'm the curator of the gallery in a working class neighborhood. She happens to be the curator of this fantastic exploratorium. And guess who started the exploratorium? The brother of Oppenheimer, in case you didn't know that.
No shit.
So what I mean is, those all post-war ideas to do with and utopianism and using reason to make a better world so we don't go into another world war. You understand? There's solid ideas. I haven't seen Oppenheimer, but I suspect that that's in there somewhere. So what I'm saying is that we love the exploratorium, don't you see? And I always would go there, and it just blow my mind, you know what I mean? And go into the strobe room, you know what I mean? And so they had too much stuff in their film archive. And because I know this woman, she gave me the stuff. And in fact, it was these black and white kinescopes of the early Science in Action. And when it was another aha moment where I saw what it was. I said, well, of the 20 episodes I have, 10 of them are about military technology. And this is truly Cold War stuff. This is truly, they're using this, again, this pedestal, this platform of teaching science, but instead of what's at the exploratorium, which is saying science is good, science feels good, it feels good to know, and knowledge is good. That's the lesson of exploratorium. This was all about, yes, science is good, and it could help keep communists out of here. You know what I mean? Like the radar one. So that's what I saw. I saw, well, this was a slightly akin to this theme having to do with, again, this loss of control and this top down, you could say, clamp down and control of speech and of art was the same thing was happening you could say in the world of teaching science education. So that's why I built from the ground up from this idea of this is too good to be true. These images are too good to be true. There's this very early television stand with very crude cameras, so they didn't have like voltage control. You know what I mean? It was tube cameras. Yep. So that's why you get these fantastic halos, because the change between a light area and a black area would do great. You understand? For the tube in the taking tube in the camera. So it's just insane. Look, like it looked like it was silver. A lot of it when it was printed to film. You understand? So this is all about history, media archaeology. That's built in there too. See, which I wanted to appreciate. Yes, at one point we had film, then we had video, but we couldn't record on video on tape. We had to record TV on film. You understand? So that's mixed media in itself. You understand? So I said, well, this is the history is actually in the matter. The history is actually in the substance of the image. It's because what I'm talking about, which is this building on ourselves and one idea coming out of another idea, another layer, and so on and so to speak, of culture, mediated more and more and more by technology. So anyway, blah blah blah. Those are a few of my thoughts. So what I mean is I had to somehow string these Science in Action scenes together that made sense with my interviews, if you see what I mean. So that's the meta, you could say, the overarching dystopian thing, and it happens to feature a woman, yes, because I didn't want to have a hero man in there, you know what I mean?
That's been done to death, let's face it.
It's a little retro. So it was, again, it would be a little bit of a counter. She was a hero, yes. She was a heroine, yeah. I had to have a protagonist. I mean, it's that kind of movie. It's a kind of a what do you call it? A B movie. It's a science fiction B movie. And which I could do. You know what I mean? Sloppy and funny and jokey, and so on and so forth. Plus, there was this, since I wanted to. Apropos of the feminist thing, I wanted this connection with this, my live action to connect with the science in action. You understand? The 50s. So there was this shot of this woman in the lab looking into a microscope. Well, there's not that many shots from 1955 of women on the set looking into a microscope. You understand? So
Right.
she became the grandma. So it was an excuse, don't you see, for a narrative. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was rare for just. Yeah, well, it's rare to see a woman do anything but be making coffee or making dinner or making dinner for her husband at this point in time in television. In the recorded television at the time, like you said, the kinescope is that like you said, you have like everyone has these halos around them, and there's a weird artfulness to it, an accidental artfulness to it. Is that they have this like kind of weird traily aspect to their movement when you watch there's a lot of like golden era of television stuff, which it looks so cool to me because I wasn't there to see it on television growing up, but the recording of it now looks so fucking awesome.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got to dig it. It's too good to be true. It's fantastic. And also,
it's
the lenses weren't right, but we don't have to go into it. What I'm saying, there's a lot of quirky things about it. The lenses they would use distorted the space. It's just a wonderful space. You could just look at those films and just be in total ecstasy. What the fuck? It's weird cinema. So they gave it to me for free. You understand? So I was gifted.
Oh, that's awesome.
You understand? So I
Even
said,
better.
I'm not going to follow it. I'm going to exploit this. And so I did, and so those are the three components: the interviews, the narrative that I shot, and the science in action.
Very awesome. Yeah. Well, you see something, and every once in a while, you say to yourself, "There's a fucking story here. Oh my god, I gotta do more. I have to." And it sounds like one of those moments, the cliche of lightning in a bottle. But you know what I mean, though, is that it's there, and he had to seize upon it. But yeah, the fascinating thing, though, the specters of the spectrum, is that when I got to your work, obviously, like I said, it was Tribulation first, and then I watched Rocket Kit, Congo Kit, Wild Gunman, and then Spectres was like this other chapter, this other frontier, if you will. I was like, there's a narrative and original footage. I'm like, this is really far out stuff. And what I liked is that you adhere to your aesthetic of your vision of mixed media collage narrative, but you also articulated your voice by crafting this other narrative around what you saw from what I came to learn was from the science and action footage, which was exceptionally cool. I thought that was another interesting lead up to, I guess, what would bring us to mock up on Moo.
That's right. Yes. Well, in other words, yes, you see that I did move a little bit from the collage and the collage compilation, the sort of the Vertovian agitprop, and I for whatever reason I wanted to you could say expand my palette. Mm-hmm. So I self-consciously moved into a world that you could say was I made that word up. I don't know, compilation narrative doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? You could hardly say collage.
It sounds good.
You can call fine, but you go ahead and say collage narrative. But people will be taken aback because it's a concept that it's an idiosyncratic thing. You know what I mean? So it describes what I was trying to do, was make a narrative out of disparate, discrete, individual, singular units. And then there would be some kind of aesthetic satisfaction in seeing how one unit that didn't have anything to do with the next unit could actually be part of a larger flow. And I mean, I'm just telling you something you already know, but that I guess was what I was trying to do. And what I learned in both those cases, Spectres and Moo, is I'm probably a better editor than I am a director of actors and actresses. It's very, very difficult. By the way, many of my friends are makers. I made whatever you call it, fiction movies before, but it's maybe it's a pretty tall order. What can I say? You're challenged in the editing room to
Mm-hmm.
bring it together. You know, it's more like that becomes the movie is how Craig solved that problem, getting from A
Right.
to Z way of M. You know what I mean? So that was what I was trying to do, but like I say, it costs too much money and it takes too
Mm-hmm.
long and it takes too many people,
Right.
and I don't know if I'm going to actually be so full throttle on the narrative anymore. I think that
Oh,
my strength is actually working with more of the editor working with collage. To be honest with you, but though like I said, I dabbled in it, but like I say,
yeah.
some people who are expecting narrative are going to be frustrated with those movies.
Well, what do you think is harder, making something entirely on your own with found footage and multimedia and editing and scoring and narrating, or is it harder to bring other people in and have actors and stuff like that and to collaborate
Yeah, it's
because
hard.
it's such an
Yeah, it's insanely hard. I can tell you, I'm a filmmaker. I mean,
yeah.
most people would take it in stride, but they'd have $100,000 behind it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And not five. You know what I mean? Not and it's just people working for free. What do you call it? Interns. And
Right.
just one take. Just taking one take and say, well, I have to do, and then move on. But that's my aesthetic is the scarcity, I call it cinema povera, the
Mm-hmm.
poverty, the
The poor
absolute
cinema, yeah, yeah.
absolute poor cinema, whatever. That's a word. I mean, that's a concept. Cuban cinema is sometimes called up.
I think that
What
just
was
might be in my notes. It said poverty, but I wrote poor, maybe. But I think that's what's hard though is that I feel like it's even more difficult to. It's one thing to make something on your own, edit something on your own, show it to other people, and then gauge their reactions and see how they respond to it. But when you bring other people into the process and be like, "Hey, act in my movie. Hey, react to this thing. Put on this hat and say, oh my god," it's harder because you're letting them in. You're saying, "Be a part of my vision," and then stuff like that. And I think that's one of the weird boundaries to kind of transcend when you're doing what you do is that you are straddling these two different you're in these two different worlds of collage narrative and then feature film narrative, and there it's like it seems close but it's not. There are two different worlds, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's a line that some people cross. And so if you want to be like a student filmmaker, you can make your own films, so to speak. But when you get in the real world, sometimes you have to try this other thing. Well, you know what I mean? And so I did. You know what I mean? And there's another set of challenges. Let's put it that way. I don't think
Yeah.
it's necessarily two different worlds. No, I don't think that. But I do think it's part of one evolutionary path. It's not necessarily the one that everyone has to take,
Right.
but a lot of people do, especially because I'm a teacher in film schools, and so when they go out, they have to start doing this organizing. I guess what would be the word, and management. You know what I mean? And it's just not. It's not easy. It's very
Mm-hmm.
difficult. But you don't need to hear me tell you that. But I'm just saying that I was always aware of that. For me, it was always a problem. I could have used a producer. Don't you see? It sounds
Right.
like I'm whining, but it's in fact,
No, not at all.
I needed. What I tried to do was, like I said, I created quote unquote a new form. I succeeded
Mm-hmm.
in doing that, but I didn't just do that just to break the rules. You know what I mean? That just to beat my chest. No, but so I'm witnessing to you right now. I'm telling you, that's very difficult to do, but it can be done, and I encourage people to do it. But I was constantly challenged with the what do you call it, the live action part of it, the production part of it. The film
Mm-hmm.
production it's insanely difficult. It is the most difficult thing in the world. I've said that a million times. A million people will say it to
Oh
you right
yeah.
now. There's nothing more. than making your own film. You build yourself a fucking rocket engine. It's not going to be as difficult as making a film.
Oh, big time, yeah.
It's a challenge to be a filmmaker. And so, but I can say that only because there's scars all over my body.
Right. But yeah, it's one of those things where I think like nowadays is that I guess it's like vulgar auteurism is that you have these these directors who are very talented and they come out and they have these like really hit movies and they play festivals, like whether you're talking like Jeremy Saulnier or Chloe Zhao, and then they they knock you out with like The Rider or something like that or Nomadland, and then Marvel drives a dump truck of their money to their lawn and says, you're going to do the next Zippity Dip or the next Boopity Bop. And it's like, okay, I mean, it's a conscious sellout, can you really fault them for doing that, right? If I made a hit movie and someone, threw me $1 billion to make it, would I say no? I don't know if I had the presidents in mind to do it, but it would probably look like an Alex Miller production, you know what I mean? If this happened to you, would you accept it? And would you make a big fucking movie?
That's a trick question. It's a trick question because it certainly would not. So I've never even gone there, and the answer would be no. But it would not happen. Take my word, it would not happen. I'm allergic to Marvel, just so you know.
So am I.
It wouldn't happen. What a hypothetical situation. No, but in a way, I could joke and say I sure wish or something like that.
Right.
And then I would take them and run it my own way. But I'm not even close. I'm not even close. Especially now. I'm 71 years old. You know what I mean? So even physically, I must say, it's very difficult to get up in the desert, run around with a bunch of cameras and lights. It's just, I don't even know if I could manage to go on location right now. Just so it's athletic is what it is. Of course, those guys with the big money, they just have everybody else do the work for them. It's true.
It's one of those things that
everybody else doing the work. I guess you would say I would be the writer is what I would be.
Yeah.
Not so much the director. But I'm trying to write with images, don't you see? That's what I'm doing as an actor. That's a better way of describing all the words. This is a little Craig Baldwinism for you. All the words we're using right now are they come from one book. They are found in one book. And what's that book?
Yeah.
What is it?
Avant to Live?
No, it's the dictionary. You understand?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that all the words that we're using to have this very high-minded discussion are all just a matter of us montaging a bunch of elements. You understand? So in a way, we are actually editing our statements, our comments. So in a way, I want to take that idea up to the level of film. You understand? I said that film. Of course, you make your own images. I encourage people to make their own images, but if you don't got any dough, it's so hard to get people in front of a camera and get film developed and all that kind of stuff, then you can actually take pieces of found footage and you can write phrases with them. You understand? So in a way, I would take if something that happened like your hypothetical situation. Yeah, I would say I'm the writer of the film. You understand? And other people could lug the camera for me. But I will actually be the one to decide how the shots come out. But I would restrict myself, of course, to the shots of some very famous celebrity actor, you know what I mean, who's selling your movie for you. Maybe she's beautiful or whatever, you know what I mean. I would of course insist that we refer to history itself in the form of newsreels and his cinema history itself in the form of clips from earlier movies on the same theme. So that would be go ahead.
What's funny though is that like I remember I would joke with my partner and with friends of mine is that like we would joke about like what if Terrence Malick did the next Bond movie, right? It would be Daniel Craig wandering around with his hands skimming the wheat, being like and it might be fucking weird and outrageous, but I would love it, right? Or what if Rodney Asher did Ant-Man 4 or something like that? No one would love it. I would love it, right? And then I was thinking, this has already been done before because Andy Warhol did Tarzan with fucking Dennis Hopper or whatever, standing around a fucking a vacant apartment in the '60s, right?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, sure. Yeah, we love Warhol, and yeah, you're absolutely right. Of
or like
course, many
the
people
Wonder Woman
wouldn't even
film.
know. Yeah, that's there's a level of, like I say, cinema that I don't really inhabit. You know what I mean? This is
Yeah.
fine. I'm not putting it down. I just say I don't have the time for that.
Oh
To
yeah.
even deal with those. I'm, what would be the word? It's kind of a. It's more like a fine tuning, and there's a certain expertise that one has or that I have that I can exploit, but it's not to step up to that larger scale of
Hmm.
corporate Hollywood. I wouldn't even be able to really speak the language, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
I
And that's
wouldn't.
the.
Yes, Leo. But
And
it's
that's
funny. Yes, what you say, and Rodney Asher could do it. I love Rodney, and if
yeah.
you ask Rodney who was his biggest influence, he'll say Craig Baldwin. I bet. Well, I'm not bragging.
Yeah. No, for real. That's how I
Wait, so
discovered you. Was because I was making a lot of music videos and stuff like that during the pandemic, and I sent him some stuff, and he said, this is cool, and what you're doing is cool, but you should check out Craig Baldwin. And I quote, he said the GOAT, the greatest of all time of found footage mixed media filmmaking, and that's how I stumbled onto you. If you want that aside,
who said that? Rodney said that.
Ronnie,
Who
yeah,
said that? Oh, good. Well, there you
Ronnie,
go. Great.
yeah,
Wonderful. I'm honored.
yep,
Great. Well, there you go. Well, good for you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That guy lives in Los Angeles now. Don't you know? And
yeah,
and he has the chops to do it, and he has the confidence. And like I say, he's younger than me and all that kind of stuff. So he knows kind of what's going on down there. And he can make the moves, whatever. Play the talk the talk. He could do it. But I'm not interested. I'm more a refuse Nick kind of thing. You know what I mean? That's just my
yeah.
generation. No, no, don't even deal with it. Blow it up.
I mean, I'm 36, and I would refuse it too if I had the opportunity. Because again, like you said, it's the language, it's the culture. I wouldn't know what to do with it if I was even presented with the opportunity. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I wouldn't
it's
want
just
to disappoint him. I don't think you'd be happy with what come out.
yeah. But yeah, I guess so yeah, next up I think I mean I have so much more. One of the things I wanted to ask. Sorry.
Just saying, maybe there has to be with an end point there.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess I just have a couple more. One more would be the term found footage is that I think for an entire generation of people it means something different. I think if you say found footage nowadays, people would think of the Blair Witch Project, horror stuff like that. When in fact it's not found footage, it's staged found footage. It's the idea of found footage. What you're doing and what you've been doing is actual found footage. Is that you actually find footage, whether it's in a vault or a university or the archives of somebody else's archives. Is another matter. What do you think the term means now? What do you think it's going to mean in the future?
That's a good one. It's sort of another rhetorical question. So I certainly don't know what it's going to be in the future, but I will tell you this: it pisses me off when people call that stuff the Blair Witch Project found footage. What they did is they what do they call it? They appropriate. They appropriated the
Mm-hmm.
appropriators. You know what I'm saying? So that I think there'll be another name for the new kind of found footage, the Blair Witch Project.
Right.
They'll find another name, but I don't. I'm not, the kind of, there's a whole generation. Many people are working with found footage, kind of, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Maybe most of them are more in the art world than in the cinema world, but that practice will not die. I don't think so. There might be less of it, and just like people playing the harp or people oil painting or something like that. There'll always be people playing the harp, but that, I think, in terms of cinema history, again, not that it's such a big deal, but that will be known as found footage. But the whole thing is that you could say the title is a little bit up for grabs. You could say that right now, but I think that the dust will settle. But not for me to shake my finger and say I know it's going to happen. But I think there's going to be some clarity maybe after a while. I don't lose any sleep over it. No, but it bothers me a little bit. I said that's fucking bullshit. When I hear that, I go, nah, I ain't found it. That's the way I feel about it. So it's not like I'm whatever personally affronted. You know what I mean? It's okay. I don't lose any sleep over it, but it's just bullshit. Just come up with a better title, you guys. Yeah. It just makes people clueless about art history and film history. That's what it means. And so I say I walk away from it. I say I don't need you. Go lose them. I mean, that's what I say.
Well, and the funny thing too is that like the idea isn't novel because it's been around since the 80s and with British ITV and the BBC with something like Ghostwatch, where they had a staged television event with Ghostwatch because they had Hospital Watch and Cop Watch and Crime Watch and stuff like that. And then Ghostwatch was for all intents and purposes a found footage or a fake footage broadcast film, which predates Blair Witch and all that other shit. But yeah, no, I think the term though.
Well, you could say it's quote unquote, but yeah, it's a wink, wink. Everybody understands that it's not real found footage. But like I say, to me, I'm not going to worry about it. It's okay you ask. It's part of my world because those guys come in my gallery and have shows here. By the way, just so you know, there's a festival.
Oh yeah,
it comes. Yeah, so I think that's okay. That's a genre, don't you see? That I get it. I can dig it, but I don't think people are there. Don't say it doesn't have the edge. It doesn't have the It doesn't have the traction that when you see real newsreel stuff. You know what I mean? Then you say, you have to confront this as history. That you know what I mean? That has a stake in so-called real history, reality, as opposed to the other stuff, which is a escapist. Whatever you call it, time. Somebody kill your time. What do you call it? Kill some time. The escapist, it's you know what I mean. It's just to it's a goof. It's a goof. It's fine. Goof's fine. It's all right. Fine goof. but it doesn't to me. It doesn't have a rank as a real intervention in history. That's what I want to do personally. Is not entertain people with this new angle as if we came upon this buried treasure, but actually to really come upon buried treasure. You understand? And like I do all the time when people and their collections come to me. You understand? So I'm an artist as well. You understand? So that's kind of a major, that's kind of what I meant by I'm in my niche, is I'm more interested in actually digging up from real archival history, pieces of sound and image that might make a difference. You understand? That might tell us something. Might make us better human beings. Might make us better empowered to act now. That might tell a story that no one knows, like this story about Africa. The German rocket firm going. They'd just be outraged at that, or the whole story of Oliver North with the Contras in Nicaragua. That's just required. And so, according to Craig Baldwin, right? So that's why I'm saying that I'm looking for the attraction of something that really had a historical trace, rather than just this what do you call it, a self everybody's kind of in on the joke, and everybody's sort of wink, wink, and that's fine. Like I say, but it's not an intervention in history. It's not activist. My films try to be activist. I said it
Right.
out loud. I'm trying to change the world with my films. It's
Yeah.
true. I'm not trying to entertain people, no. But if I
Right.
if I change the world better by entertaining people, then I'll go ahead. I'll use a narrative. I'll use a pretty girl,
Right.
and I'll use a funny light thing. And I'll make a spaceship, and that's means to an end for me.
Yeah. That's what I refer to as it's there if you want it. I made a thing, and if you want to do this, it's there if you want it. And for what it's worth, you are making a difference, and you have been making a difference because you've made a profound difference in my life, and I have proselytized you on a certain level. There was a buddy of mine at work who was he's not a movie guy, and he's a movie guy to a certain degree, but we were riffing about the X-Files and stuff like that, and I brought in Tribulation '99, and he watched it, and I asked him, and he goes like this, "Oh my god." And he goes, "It's like you said, it's nonstop, boom, boom, boom." And it was funny because he was like, "You take the QAnon stuff nowadays, and it's like, and this seems so innocent to the shit we're dealing with now."
Well,
Right?
there you go. It's a perfect example of me pointing at conspiracy thinking. Don't you see?
Mm-hmm.
That was in '91. That's what I was
Yeah.
doing. I'm saying our politics are fucked up because people aren't thinking straight. They're not using the reason.
Yep.
And that's what I was pointing at. So so I guess as you could say, you could say that I was proved right. You could say that, like that sounds like a brag, but I told you
That's
so.
okay. That's okay if it's a brag, because it's okay to brag when you've done it right.
Yeah. So that's kind of all I'm doing is these tiny humble. I'm really on the very margins. I hope you understand that. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
edge. But Tribulation did penetrate. I'm quite
Oh
sure
yeah.
people in the X-Files saw Tribulation. I could say that. I don't know if that's true of Oliver Stone or not, but it did get out there. And with Moo, and in fact, two of the central guys in Moo were made into movies. L. Ron Hubbard, like 3 years after I made Moo, whoever I can't remember the name, made a movie about L. Ron Hubbard, and then
The
this
master.
and then this other guy made a podcast about Jack Parsons, this other
Mm-hmm.
big maker. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Another LA titan, you know what I mean? Huge guy.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is, well, don't you see? These all exist in an array around all of us. You know what I'm saying? And there's
Mm-hmm.
things that come right at you, like the things on the billboards that you Marvel comics and things like that. But I'm I'm activating. I'm advocating for a larger selection and a larger choice and a larger palette. Even in the art world, the idea of an avant-garde, I'm opposed to. I mean, I of course I love avant-garde art, but the thing is to
Mm-hmm.
think that you got to go this way is wrong. What I'm trying, that's why I call my thing other cinema. It has to do with looking to the outside, to the periphery, to the margins. So what I'm
And that
saying is that, go ahead.
that was something I wanted to touch on, was the idea of the other and the idea of the uncanny, is that not divorcing, well, maybe, yeah, divorcing yourself from the mainstream and kind of holding yourself down as an outlier to the to the mainstream idea of cinema, and what's going on in LA, not LA, but in California and everything, is that you have this identity as kind of one of the last holdouts of the art community in San Francisco.
Boy, Jesus Christ. Well, I hope I'm not. It could be a generational thing where like I said Refusenick earlier. It could be a thing that a whole generation of people didn't want to have anything to do with it and wash their hands of it, so to speak. But there is a margin. and it has been created. But it's not just artists who do it, by the way. Again, it's like this: people are fucking with gender, and a lot of it has to do with culture. And also other kinds of culture coming in. You understand? It's not just the fine art world. So, yeah. So what I'm saying is, I hope I'm not the last holdup, but that is kind of where I'm coming from.
What I really wanted to mention was that again with I mentioned feminism earlier with Spectres of the Spectrum, but also that you predominantly showcase a lot of up and coming, female feminist filmmakers like Sarah Jacobson and Valerie Zoe and stuff like that. And I love Sarah Jacobson, and I Was a Teenage Serial Killer knocked me out, and I think that's such a huge and critical point for the advancement of cinema and giving voice to female filmmakers and stuff like that, because mainstream Hollywood isn't doing it. It is now as a corrective act for not doing it for so long, right? That's I think a point of pride to have in what you're doing, what you've been doing. So that's awesome. That's fucking great, man.
Well, thank you very much. That's a compliment. Yeah, like I say, if you go to the level of film classes or underground cinema, community street cinema, a neighborhood cinema, you'll see a lot more women are involved. You know what I mean? It's not equal to the proportion. And by the way, gay people, plenty. But it's true that they don't always succeed at the level of Hollywood. But again, I'm not looking in that. I'm sorry to say that's the case, but I don't look in that direction. So I'm looking more, you could say, horizontally.
Yeah.
And across this view appears, or the street, you could say, street view. Of course, but we're not interested in feature. I'm not speak for everyone, of course, but it's not. There's a natural climb. You have to make a feature film in Hollywood. That's a ridiculous idea. And being someone who teaches in film school, I'll tell you, I do my best to divest my students of that idea, because all my cohorts who went down to Hollywood ended up making films. They ended up being a second assistant, sound editors. You know what I mean? They'll just go store clips. You understand? That they never made their own movies down there. You understand? They just worked for other big Hollywood people. You can get a job in Hollywood for sure, but I chose not to do. But so I don't. Like I say, I could be thinking about Detroit. I'm working in when I go to Detroit and work in a car factory.
Right.
Well, I know I actually don't think that'd be the best thing for me to do. See, so I was able to do that. I made that choice. So what I'm saying is that in the real world of filmmaking, not the industry, it's diverse, and it's getting way more diverse all the time, especially in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So, in answer to your compliment, and I want to thank you, is that that's what we're trying to do here. But again, we're not necessarily trying to just reproduce what we did in the 80s, which is this kind of identity politics, which is have a black night and then a gay night and the women's night. I mean, we do that. I mean, but we don't want to ghettoize these groups as well. You understand? Right. By saying
you're not doing an action or an answer to something. You're doing.
I would really have to include it. Yeah. So we do have a Sisters Pictures show. I don't know if you saw that. That's on some calendars, not all. That's just when we have enough of a gang of women makers who come up with a new thing, and then we'll put them together. It works. I mean, I'm happy with that. That's fine. But there's plenty of women on all the other shows anyway, to be honest with you. So anyway, we try to do that. And, we try to do something about Native work on No Thanksgiving. I don't know if you know Adam Khalil. Oh, I'm not dropping a name on him, but he's a former intern of mine. He's very successful. Yeah, Adam Khalil. So he, and then and so on. But the identity politics is something that we came through. You understand? I mean, you're just not old enough to. So there was a lot of struggle around that. Marlon Riggs would be a name you'd have to know. A guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but he taught at Berkeley when I taught. Well, he was in the journalism department. I was in the film department. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So So, what I'm saying is that those guys did that. It's more like those guys should break through rather than me condescending to them to
Right.
allow them a platform. No, those guys, they have the strength, they're empowered to do it. And then it's meritocracy. If I see good work, then book it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Marlon Riggs. I mean, he's gotten another kind of a renaissance in the wake of a Criterion release of his video work with Ethnic Notions and Tongues Untied, and very, very, very wild stuff. Very, very fucking important work. And it just goes to show that you don't need to have a 4K camera crew. You just need to be a passionate, smart guy with a video camera.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Again, yeah. I'm anti. Yeah. Your whole generation just bought that whole tech. I'm sorry, I'm not putting my finger at you, but yeah, I'm so not impressed by that. I am really I love shooting with a tube camera. I love VHS.
Yeah.
I think that is great and as a texture. Call it texture, whatever. Right. That's what I'm into.
Oh, this is my standby right here.
Is that a Super 8?
Yeah, thank you.
Beauty. That's a beautiful glance, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going away right now, but I can show you 5 cameras right back there. I can show you. Two of them are Super 8s. I can show you, yeah. Yeah.
This is the big one. The K3.
Okay. What is the CP?
K3.
Okay, I can hardly read that. I can't read. I can't read it, man. I can't read it. Sorry.
No one can read it in Russian.
What's it? Oh, what is it? What's it say?
It's K3, the Krasnogorsk.
Okay. Oh, I got you now. That's why I couldn't read it. Yeah. Okay, baby. Good for you. Like I say, there's no one I respect more than a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Because I know that they have some guts. I know. I'm telling you, baby. I'm scarred. I know how hard it is.
Mm-hmm.
You it's not that you have to be have a good eye. You have to have courage. You kind of have to have a vision. You know what I mean? You have to know what you're doing.
It's the biggest rush in the world, shooting something and then taking it out of the camera, taking out the cartridge, developing it, drying it, and then projecting it and seeing the eureka moment of like, holy shit, I actually can see what I shot. That's like more rewarding than, with my phone and everything. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, okay.
I can probably do more of this. But.
Yeah. That's what you paid some dues, you know what I mean? It's masks on the margins. That's in the book, but it's kind of my aphorism. But right. Yeah, you paid some dues. That might be a little bit retro, that whole as philosophy, but that's kind of the way I came up, man. It's just
it works for me.
Hurting. But then there's more rewards out of it, and that's kind of what I was meant about taking the Super 8 into the solar movies. You really this is fucking risk, man. It's life or death kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's dramatic, and it's so anyway. Do you know that Tony Conrad made the thing where he was shooting and then developing it and projecting all in a loop? Do you know that?
No.
I'm not trying to change the subject. It's just reminding me you should do it all at the same time.
No shit. That's crazy.
If you know anything about Tony Conrad, go ahead, boy. After the interview, look up Tony Conrad, who's also from New York, by the way, Buffalo. Oh, wow. And a personal friend of mine, and he did a lot of great things. He was like the projections for the Velvet Underground. Speaking of the fifth member of the band, that's what he was. So, but he just in regards to what you said, he did something where he was shooting, and then the same role, he processed it, and then the same role, 10 feet later, he was actually ran through a projector.
That's
but it was it's more the idea of the process. You know, it's pointing to the process. That's kind of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's all
You,
part of the show.
that's where the art. Yeah. But anyway, you can look that up. There's a name for that.
That's
But
very fucking cool.
2 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, like all the stuff that I've shot for Incubate and for Burnt by the Sun were Super 8 or 16, and it was self-developed and done by oneself. That DIY technique.
There you go. You said the right thing.
Totally. Oh yeah. Very cool. Well, I guess I have one more question, if you can handle it.
Sure, Bubba.
For a 16 millimeter camera, would you prefer a K3, a Bolex, or a Bulu?
A Bulu, you mean?
Is that how it's pronounced? I don't know.
It's Bulu. I have a Bulu. I have 60 millimeter Bulu. Would I prefer a Bolex or Bulu, or what'd you say, a 4K?
Or this thing.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
I'll take the Bolex.
Yeah.
Bolex. Can't beat them. But we just show the it's the 100th anniversary or whatever, the 16 millimeter. You should know that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we showed the film about Bowles. The guy's name is Bowlesy.
Mm.
He was actually Russian.
Jerry was talking about that in the interview I did with him a couple months ago.
Yeah, that's just history. I mean, again, that's a little bit on the film fetish side, but but here, Anthony's my roommate. Hi.
Hey, Craig.
Hi. Anthony's my roommate.
Sorry, not to interrupt.
Oh, he's giving me something to eat.
Ooh,
What a nice guy.
What a guy.
Hey, thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, my roommate. He's a filmmaker. But anyway, the point is that I don't want to make a big deal about the Bolex, but I'm answering your question. Yeah, I love the Bolex. So I had a Bolex, and maybe I've had two. Who knows? But I do have a Bulu. We did do the right thing and showed this movie about how the film that camera came about. We showed it last season and so on. Big deal. Well, I hope I'm still celebrating the 100th birthday. You know what I mean? Inexcuse to show 6. Yeah.
Oh, I have a Bulu, but the power source doesn't work, so I gave it to an electronics guy to fix, and he can't attach the battery. And I just told him, if you can get it going, I don't give a shit. I'll deal with the battery part myself. Just make it, and I'll do all the rest. But I think the K3 is going to be my go-to. If I can't find a Bolex, I can put a magazine on the Bolex, which is awesome. So
it depends on what kind of movie you're making. Right. Like I say, I like the single frame thing about the Bolex.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Very nice. Oh, looks like you got some food there.
I'm not going to eat it right now. Go ahead.
Okay.
Continue.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to hold you up, but
that's okay. That was a surprise to me.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So, with everything going on right now, what are some of the things that you look forward to? I guess in modern movies. What's the last film that you saw that excited
in movies?
Yeah, in like just film in general.
The movies? Oh boy, I don't even know if you want to hear the answer. The thing is this: I
do.
Okay. Okay, I'm the leaseholder on this storefront here, which is in this Mission District, which is being rapidly gentrified. And what I'm doing is working more or less, well, all the time, to be honest with you, trying to make rent and keep this place open. Understand? And there's 8 tenants here. You just saw one. I have another roommate, a woman, by the way. And there's other galleries within this gallery. And there's other festivals, in fact, within this. Third Eye Festival is a festival of South Asian. And that's another student from Berkeley. Wasn't my student,
Nice.
but ended up over here. And that's a very successful festival, by the way, because
Very
there's
cool.
a lot of Indian people, South Asian people who live in the Bay Area. In case you didn't know that.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that all of us are together, and I'm not really able to spend a lot of time just chilling at the theater.
Yeah.
What I'm saying. And I do watch a lot of movies, but I don't really watch them in their entirety. I watch a little bit of maybe 10 movies every day. I watch educational and industrial films. You understand? I watch archival films. I make my living selling films and licensing films.
Very
And so I know what's going on in the world of cinema. It's not necessarily the world of contemporary releases. If that's your question, I'm not the one to give you a good answer. But as this particular filmmaker, again, you could say retrenched and is not fighting at the level of the grindhouse and the rep theater anymore. Those guys are challenged, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
Even get asses in seats, so to speak. What I'm trying to do is think at my level, micro cinema level, is think, how do I get 40 people, 50 people to put their asses in seats that are right above me right now in this gallery? And so I put those shows together. I'm putting the calendar together right now, as I said. Yeah. And those are the movies. I see previews and links and things on Vimeo and so on and so forth. And so I can't really talk about the larger, what do you call the macro level of the cinema culture. I wouldn't know what that is. I think if anyone claimed that they knew what it was, it'd be a lie. I don't really think you can make that claim. So I would be very skeptical. But I think there are many bands of the rainbow, so to speak. There's many different wavelengths, and there's many different worlds. But my world is relatively a small world. So I want to do justice to your question and tell you that I'm only excited by the collections that come in my door. And I'm full time on breaking those down and making sense of them and doing the right thing by them. I call it redeeming them. Understand? Here's one anecdote. There's a school I used to teach at. It's called California College of Arts and Crafts. Well, they did away with the crafts. So it's not CCAC anymore. It's CCA. Well, that's a bad sign in the first place. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so all the jewelers and the glass makers and the people making sculptures out of wood, they're out. And even in the film department, they're not teaching analog anymore. And in fact, they're not even teaching experimental film anymore. It's all about, again, trying to be a narrative feature maker. Yes. And so what I'm saying is that a guy used to teach there. This is just an anecdote. For like 20 years, he taught film there. He gave me like 10 boxes of films that are the film journals of that school. They were shot by someone who was recording it, just like someone would shot video now, but on 16 millimeter, plus 20 years of his students' work that was left with him, more or less, because the students left, maybe it's their B-roll, maybe it's their work print, you understand? That's what I'm looking forward to, you understand? So that's the straight answer to your question is, if I could claim or take charge of that history, which is just insanely important to the Bay Area and the art community here, and Oakland, that's where CCA was, but they're known more. They moved to San Francisco, and so on. So stupid decisions, right down the line with that board. Then if I could find something in there, then don't you see, that would be the start of another project for me. You understand? That would be something that I could look forward to, and that I could say what was that. I can't really. If I don't know what your question is to me, whether it has to do with popular movies or not, because I cannot say that I'm up to that. I don't care about that, to be honest with you. I'm a dropout, refusenik. So it's not that I'm making it go away. but I just have I have no traction there. I have no power there. And where my power is really, especially being an insanely impoverished guy, and by the way, a so-called senior citizen, you know what I mean, is to hold on to what I got right here in a very competitive neighborhood. I'm telling you. And so many people are so happy that we're here. Every day they tell me, say, well, look, it's just shit and chains and ridiculous clothing stores. And somebody has a dog where you can feed your dog for $75. Two doors down. I'm lying. So what I'm saying is that just by maintaining space is almost like performance.
Yeah.
You understand? By sitting on the joint.
You're holding court by being.
I'm holding it down. So that's the truth. And so, I mean, it's not like I'm not whining about it. I chose this path, but I'm still I have many films that I'm making right now. But I mean, that would be a super long story to tell you. But they're all shorter, and they really have to do with archival stuff, to be honest with you.
Right.
So that. To be honest with you, I'm happy to receive these collections, and I think there's going to be more. And the reason is because people are getting rid of their 16. Mm-hmm. They're getting rid of it. They're dying. They're moving out of town, and so on and so forth. Or whole departments are closing. The Art Institute right here went down. San Francisco Art Institute went down. And
I think
Mills
I have
College
stuff
went down.
from them in my collection that I bought off of eBay.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have lots of weird archive that I've collected over the past few years.
So anyway, that's the direction I'm looking. I'm just admitting or confessing to you that's the only thing I can speak in whatever you call it, in a confident way that I can claim to know about. The whole other world, not Hollywood, is not to mention the internet. You know what I mean? And so social media. Or all these other new technologies, like I say, holography, of course. It's right. It's two doors down. AI. Do you think AI is going to fuck? This is going to completely wipe this clean, man. But again, I don't want to act like so yeah. But I'm sorry to say, you're through, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, again, so. It's kind of I guess you could say kind of an admission of my marginal position, but that's fine. There's only so much I can do, but I think again my metaphor is always Jonas Salk, because you didn't get polio. My father got polio. Well, I mean, he got through it, but what the point is that because a small group of people, in that case, it were scientists or doctors, you could say. Went in and found out what you could say would cause polio. A small group of people made a big difference. You see what I mean? So that's kind of my metaphor, is that I don't try to boil people over by having millions of people watch my movie, my Marvel movie, but rather I try to replace the right idea and just get it up above ground where maybe people would have access to it. And you could say that's what my label has done. Yeah. He's gotten these movies out there. And the net, let's face it, and these movies all, I mean, they resonate, let's face it, Sonic Outlaws, Trib, the net, and we have Rodney stuff, by the way, in case you didn't know. And so that's my way of making a difference. That's my metaphor. It's through this idea of again, I hesitate to use the word avant-garde, but through a special idiom. What you and I are doing right now, for example, some people might not even understand this conversation. You understand? Because of this refined, more precise kind of vocabulary, you understand, lexicon. Right. So we were able to actually make points that maybe wouldn't make any difference to a large group of people, but we don't need necessarily, the way I feel about it. It may use too much.
Well, the other thing too is that like I remember when I was in school and everything, and it was the semester started right in in January after my film had played at your cinema, And people asked, what I was doing and what I was all about, and I was like, I just had a film play at fucking other cinema, And then for me, I'm like, that's woo woo,
Yeah.
And like my teachers were like, yeah, and like everyone else around me was like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
But that that was the thing though, is that I would rather get the recognition from the people I respect than, you know what I mean though?
Yeah. But even then, you don't need respect for even then. But it's not for me to tell you how to, your value system.
Right.
But yeah, it's not. But it's not. That's not the reason you're making movies to get affirmation. No, but he's doing the right thing, and maybe that you don't get affirmation. So get ready for that too. But that's fine. But if you can get affirmation within you so-called experts as well as the population at large, that's cool too. By the way, they should do that. But that's okay. It's just. You can't be in control of all those things. I can't hire a publicist. A lot of it is just publicity. In case you didn't know, a lot of it is just how many boards you have. That's what it comes. Or hiring a super famous, actress. That there's just tricks. It's business, just like selling a car. So that's my world. I can't afford a publicist. So DIY. That's the whole thing. If you're smart enough, hip enough, then you'll pick it up.
Well, so you want the common denominator. You don't want to hit the common denominator, because if you did, then you'd be everyone else.
Get right, man.
And if otherwise, then you need it's not so much publicists, but it's like influencers and Instagram influencers and social media influencers. I don't even know what that is. I don't know what the fuck you have to be on Fire Island or have a bikini or something. I don't fucking know. But yeah, it's this whole other fucking goofy nomenclature. That's fucking the tarmac is not top of my head, so the plane is passed.
Yeah, it's part of it. You're going to be sucked in. It's like I say, I'm not saying that you're guilty of anything. I'm just saying that you are going to, you're vulnerable to this gravity of the social media, and you're going to sooner or later start to talk about those guys and so on. And there'll be something after it. But I think it'll just get worse. I'm totally... I'm hopeless. So that's I thought about it a long time, and so that's what I've come up with. But you don't have to come to the same conclusions as I do. You know what I mean? But sort of fun.
You've been right about a lot of shit, so it stands to reason you'll probably be right about some more shit too. Very cool, man. Very cool. Oh, shit. Thank you for making it this far.
Was that your last question then?
I probably have more.
Go ahead. One more. How's that one more?
One more. All right. Nice.
Made it. It's past 5. Yeah, there's one more. You're never going to... Dorsey, you'll never be able to edit this. It's ridiculous. It's,
it'll go on forever.
No, we're going one more question. Then I'm going to eat my...
Uno más, por favor.
Uno más.
What do you think is the most important technological innovation in the past few years?
Again, you're well,
and this can be for better or worse.
I'm not into this most or best or you list it. It's contrary to my disposition.
Yeah, to your DNA.
But I cannot deny that there's changes. It's speeding up. There's no doubt about it. The acceleration of technological exchange. I'm closer to it than you are, just so you know. Silicon Valley, those people are all around me. They don't want to live down there in Palo Alto. They come in San Francisco, don't you know?
Yeah.
They come with big buses right in front of my house. Google buses, they call them.
Jumping fucking Jesus.
Yeah, and so I like I say, I'm not outside of that world. I'm trying to coexist with that world. You know, you could say I'm a mirror image. I'm the contradiction of that world, so to speak. But I'm not. I cannot say. It certainly has something to do with probably social media. It probably has to do with communication. It probably has to do with some form. It could be this thing that we're doing right now. It could be this Zoom thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty revolutionary.
This could be a movie.
This 10 years ago. You know, maybe it could, but yeah. Let's say this. Just that's an answer. It's probably not the answer, but it's what we're doing right now. We're making history right now. I think we're doing the right thing with the technology right now. What we're trying to do is raise consciousness. That's the way I go around the world thinking. So we're having this discussion, and we're using technology that apparently someone gave us or bought. I can't remember buying Skype. Did it come free? You know, I mean, so
it came from the heavens.
Yeah. So to our credit, we appropriate technology to be able to talk to each other across the country. So that's not too shabby. It's okay. And hopefully there's some meat on the bones there, some substance.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's way more. I'm sure there's 3D versions of this right now as prototypes. We could be in full. I could be spinning around, like a ballerina in front of you in 3D next time. But I
got the glasses right over there.
Suffice, What?
I got the glasses right over there.
Yeah, well, there you go. Right. Did you see my manifesto?
Oh, yeah.
I sent it to you. You're right. Good for you, man. I can't remember if I sent that out. Thanks for that's probably one of my. I see that came with a.
Bam.
Now, see, so in other words, we right there. Yeah. See, we broke through. You understand? But what we're doing now is pretty high tech. But right there, that's pretty low tech. But that also packs a punch at the individual level. So that's I guess turn your question a tiny little bit. What I'm saying is that I'm not so much looking forward to or knowledgeable of the next big thing. No, what I'm doing is the best use of available technology. What I'm doing is, since the book came out, I want to tour with it. I want to launch with it, and I have a lot of friends, and some of them are archivists in Mexico City. So I'm going to take the book to Mexico City, and so I have a show that I do, a live show in 3D. Just so you know, so I'm doing that down there. So that's the next big thing for Craig Baldwin. You understand? I can't speak in these sweeping terms like the president. You know what I mean? I can only talk for you could say a small, a minority, a subculture of people who, I guess, endangered. But I'm taking it to the experimental filmmakers in Mexico City, and there's a very strong scene down there. You understand? So that's a great idea, because not only the experimental film, but also this idea of the cultural exchange, so to speak. You understand? That's I think what should be done right now is not people necessarily just using social media as an ego boost or whatever they do, or talking to their friends who think exactly like them, but rather to challenge yourself and move out to other peripheral cultures. Just so you know. So that's let that be my last statement. That's what I'm looking forward to, and I think that's just as absolutely revolutionary and contemporary as you could possibly do, is to take a 3D show down to Mexico City.
Very fucking cool.
Yeah.
Oh, sign me up.
Yeah, you will hear all about that. And by the way, I certainly plan on touring to New York, but not necessarily your part of New York. Although I have been there. And have you heard about the Interventionist? Did you see the book? The show at Mass Mocha was called The Interventionist.
Oh, and I looked that up totally. And I still have contacts there too. So
don't worry too much about it. I mean, again, I've got to beat my own drum, but I'm saying that I have some billboards. I had a billboard alteration, which is in Sonic Outlaws, but some of my billboards are in the catalog for that show, which sold out. The catalog sold out. In other words, it was a popular, even though it was a fine art catalog. But that's a brilliant show. You know, it's down now, of course, but The Interventionist, and that's kind of what my whole movie it was about. Sonic Outlaws. That's a word you don't hear anymore, though. But anyway, but let that be my last statement.
Very cool, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey,
so
I appreciate it. It's been so fucking cool to meet you, man. It's an honor and pleasure. You've been an inspiration, and I thank you for so much.
You're so welcome. Your brother, man.
My man.
Bye. Bye.
Take care of yourself.
Bye.